The ink and the memory. Sadie asked me to write this down. Said the truth has a way of rotting if you don't get it out in the open. She's right about that. She's right about most things, come to think of it. So here I am sitting at this old desk with a bottle of ink that's probably older than good sense, trying to figure out where a story like this one actually begins. The lamp flickers when the wind hits the house just right. Snow's falling outside quiet and steady, the kind that makes the world feel smaller. Warmer, maybe. Or maybe that's just the fire in the next room and the fact that Sadie's asleep in the chair beside it, breathing soft and even like she always does when the day's worn her down. She's 44 now, still strong, still stubborn, still wakes up some mornings and looks at that barn like it might reach out and grab her. 15 years we've been here together. 15 years since the day I found her. I look at the wall across from me. There's a hole there just above the window frame. Small, round, a bullet hole that I never patched because some scars shouldn't be hidden. They should sit there and remind you what almost happened, what did happen, what you chose to do about it. The coffee's gone cold in my cup. I didn't drink much of it anyway. I pick up the pen, dip it, watch the ink drip back into the bottle like it's trying to tell me something. Maybe it is. Maybe it's saying that once you start telling a story like this, you can't take it back, can't soften it, can't pretend it was anything other than what it was. So, here goes. I suppose it started the day I bought this land. 30 acres of nothing much, a house that leaned like it had given up, and a barn that stood crooked but still standing. That was in the spring of 1878. I was 53 years old, and I'd just buried my wife with money from the last cattle I owned. No, that's not quite right. It didn't start there. It started years before in a place called Tombstone. Or maybe it started the day a boy named Billy Rohr died. Or maybe it started the first time I stood still when I should have moved. Hard to say when bad decisions truly begin, but I'll try to tell it straight. I stand up from the desk and walk to the shelf by the door. There's a small wooden horse sitting there no bigger than my fist. The paint's worn off in places. The legs are uneven because whoever carved it wasn't much good with a knife. But it's been sitting on that shelf for 15 years, and I dust it every week like it's made of gold. I pick it up, turn it over in my hands. The wood's smooth now from all the times I've done this, held it, looked at it, tried to remember what it felt like to be young enough to think you could outrun your mistakes. Some toys outlive the children who played with them. I set the horse back down and return to the desk. The pen's waiting. The page is still mostly blank. And Sadie's still asleep in the next room, trusting me to get this right. So I'll start where the memory starts. The day I came to this land and found something I didn't expect. The day I stopped running even though I didn't know it yet. The wind that spring carried a smell I'd almost forgotten. Dust and sage and something clean underneath it all, like the earth was trying to start over. I'd been riding for 3 days, coming west from a town I didn't care to remember, looking for a place where nobody knew my name or cared to ask. I was 53 years old, and I felt older. The war had taught me how to shoot, how to dig a grave, how to sleep light and wake fast. But mostly it taught me how loud silence could be. That was 20 years gone by then, and I thought I'd learned to handle it. Thought I could find some quiet corner of the world and just sit with it until my time ran out. I'd buried Maggie 6 weeks earlier. Pneumonia took her slow. The kind of slow that gives you time to say goodbye but doesn't give you the words to say it right. We'd been married 11 years. Never had children. She wanted them. I didn't. Told her I was too old, too tired, too broken from things she didn't need to know about. Truth was, I was afraid I'd pass something down that a child shouldn't have to carry. She died on a Tuesday. I remember because the church bells rang that morning and I thought for just a second that they were ringing for her. They weren't. Somebody else had died that day too. The world doesn't stop turning just because your heart does. I sold the cattle to pay for the coffin and the plot. Sold the house a week later to a man who didn't ask questions. Took what was left and rode west until I saw a sign nailed to a post that said land for sale. Cheap. 30 acres. A house, a barn, water rights to a creek that ran when it felt like it. The man selling it was old and tired and didn't much care who bought it as long as they paid cash. I gave him what I had. He gave me a paper with my name on it and rode off without saying goodbye. That was fine with me. I wasn't looking for friends. I was looking for quiet. The ranch sat about 8 miles outside a town called Ashford. Small place, maybe 200 people if you counted the children and the drunks. One main street, a general store, a saloon that doubled as a hotel, a church that needed paint. The kind of town where everybody knows everybody's business but they're too polite or too tired to say it out loud. I'd ridden through Ashford once on my way to look at the land. Stopped for supplies and a cup of coffee that tasted like the bottom of a boot. The woman behind the counter at the store was friendly enough, asked where I was headed. I told her. She nodded like she already knew. "That old place out past the ridge," she said. "Been empty 2 years." "Why's that?" I asked. She shrugged, wiped down the counter with a rag that didn't look much cleaner than the wood it was cleaning. "Man who owned it before shot himself in the barn. His widow moved back east. Couldn't stand the quiet, I reckon." I didn't ask any more questions. Quiet was exactly what I wanted. I bought flour, coffee beans, salt pork, and a box of ammunition I hoped I wouldn't need, paid with coins that felt heavier than they should have. The woman wrapped everything in brown paper and string and handed it across the counter with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You need anything else, you come see me," she said. "Name's Martha Keene." I tipped my hat and left. The ride out to the ranch took about an hour. The land opened up the farther you got from town. Flat in some places, rolling in others, cut through with dry creek beds and patches of scrub that looked like they were holding on by pure stubbornness. The sky was big out here, bigger than it had any right to be, blue and empty and so wide it made you feel like you could disappear into it if you weren't careful. Maybe that's what I wanted, to disappear, to become just another piece of the landscape, dust and wind and nothing much else. The house came into view first, small, wood frame, roof sagging in the middle like a tired horse. 2 windows in front, both cracked. A porch that tilted to the left. It looked exactly like I felt. The barn was behind it, bigger than I expected. The doors hung crooked on their hinges, but the structure itself was solid. Thick beams, good foundation. It had been built by someone who knew what they were doing even if they didn't know how to keep living afterward. I dismounted and stood there for a long minute just looking. The wind moved through the grass. Somewhere far off a hawk cried. My horse shifted its weight and snorted uneasy about something I couldn't see. Animals know before men do. I should have paid attention to that. But I was tired. Tired of paying attention. Tired of listening to instincts that had kept me alive when maybe I didn't want to be. I tied the horse to a post and walked toward the barn. The doors groaned when I pushed them open. Rust and old wood and the weight of time. Light spilled in through gaps in the walls, cutting the darkness into stripes. Dust floated slow like it was watching. The smell hit me first. Sweat, old rope, fear that had nowhere to go. And then I saw the bundle in the far corner. Not neat, not hidden, just placed there like trash someone meant to come back for. At first I thought it was rags, old blankets maybe, something the previous owner had left behind. Then I saw the foot, bare. Still, I didn't rush. Every step felt louder than it should have been. The barn listened. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to get out. I knelt down beside the bundle and reached out, touched what I thought was fabric. It was a shoulder, a person, cold, like they'd been left out all night. Then they twitched, just barely, like life was hanging on by a thread. My hands moved before my brain caught up. I pulled back the blanket. Underneath was a woman, bruised, sunburned, dirt smeared across her face like someone had dragged her through the yard and didn't care to clean her up. Her wrists were raw, red and peeling where rope had been tied too tight for too long. Her ankles were the same. Someone had bound her and left her here, left her to die. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was so shallow I had to lean in close just to hear it. She was alive, barely. I pulled my knife from my belt. The The blade flashed once in the dim light as I cut the rope around her wrists. The fibers fell away and I could see the damage underneath. Skin rubbed raw. Fresh and old wounds layered on top of each other like this wasn't the first time she'd been tied up. I cut the rope at her ankles next. Then I pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and slid one arm under her knees, the other behind her back. She didn't weigh much. Too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. I stood holding her against my chest, and that's when it happened. A sound. Distant, echoing in my head. A woman screaming. Fire crackling. The smell of smoke and burning wood and something worse underneath. I froze. My breath stopped. My vision blurred at the edges. I wasn't in the barn anymore. I was somewhere else. Somewhere hot and bright and full of smoke. A door in front of me. Locked. Flames licking up the sides. A woman's voice inside calling for help. Calling for me. And I stood there, frozen, while the fire roared and the voice got quieter and quieter until it stopped. I blinked. The barn came back. The woman in my arms twitched again, pulling me out of the memory. My hands were shaking, my chest felt tight, but I forced my legs to move. "Not this time," I said out loud. My voice sounded strange in the empty barn, rough, like I hadn't used it in a while. "Not again." I carried her outside. The sunlight hit us both and she flinched, even unconscious. I laid her down on the porch in the shade and went back inside the house for water. The place was a mess. Dust everywhere, furniture covered in sheets, but there was a pump in the kitchen and I worked the handle until water came out rust red at first, then clear. I soaked a cloth and brought it back outside. She was still unconscious. I pressed the wet cloth to her forehead. Her skin was hot, fever maybe, or just the sun. Her eyelids fluttered, opened halfway. Green eyes, glassy and unfocused, stared up at me like she didn't know if I was real or just another bad dream. "You're safe," I said. I didn't know if that was true yet, but I said it anyway. She tried to speak. Her lips moved, but nothing came out, just a dry rasp that sounded like it hurt. I poured a little water onto the cloth and squeezed it over her mouth. She swallowed, coughed, swallowed again, then her eyes closed and she went limp. I sat there for a long time, listening to her breathe, watching her chest rise and fall slow and uneven, like it might stop if I looked away. The barn stood behind us, quiet now, but not empty, never empty, because whoever did this, whoever tied her up and left her there to die, they hadn't finished. And something told me they'd be back to check. The woman who tried to run. I carried her inside and laid her on the only bed in the house. It wasn't much, just a frame and a mattress that smelled like dust and old lavender. But it was better than the dirt floor of the barn. I lit a fire in the stove even though the day was warm. She needed heat. Her skin felt cold despite the sunburn. That wasn't a good sign. I had some medical supplies in my saddlebag. Not much. Bandages, a tin of salve, a bottle of whiskey that was supposed to be for drinking but worked just as well for cleaning wounds. I cleaned the rope burns on her wrists first. She didn't wake up, didn't make a sound, just lay there breathing slow while I worked. The burns were bad, some of them fresh, some of them days old. Someone had tied her up more than once, maybe practiced, maybe wanted to make sure she couldn't get away. I wrapped her wrists in clean bandages, did the same for her ankles. Then I sat back and looked at her. She was young, late 20s maybe, dark hair tangled and full of dirt, a face that might have been pretty once before someone decided to use it for practice. There was a bruise on her jaw, another one on her collarbone. Her knuckles were scraped like she'd fought back at some point. Good, I thought. Fight's important. Means she's not done yet. I pulled a chair over to the bedside and sat down with the shotgun across my knees. Not because I was afraid, because I understood something simple. Whoever did this didn't finish. And when they came back, I wanted to be ready. Night came slow, the kind of slow that gives you too much time to think. I kept the fire going, kept the lamp lit, sat in that chair and listened to her breathe. Every now and then she'd twitch, flinch in her sleep, make a small sound that wasn't quite a word, like she was dreaming about something she didn't want to remember. I knew that feeling. The war gave me dreams like that. Dreams where I was back in the mud and the smoke trying to drag a man to safety while his blood soaked into my uniform. Dreams where I heard voices calling my name and I couldn't find them no matter how hard I looked. I didn't sleep much anymore. Hadn't for years. Maggie used to joke that I slept with one eye open. She didn't know how close to true that was. Around midnight the woman's eyes opened. Not all the way, just halfway, like she was testing to see if the world was still there. She looked at the ceiling first, then at the walls, then at me. Her eyes were green, sharp even through the haze of pain and exhaustion, the kind of eyes that had learned not to trust anything they saw. I didn't move, didn't smile, just sat there with the shotgun and let her look. After a minute she tried to sit up. Her arms shook, her face went white. She made it about 6 inches before she fell back down gasping. "Don't," I said. Not harsh, just honest. "You're not ready." She turned her head toward me, studied my face like she was trying to figure out if I was the one who'd put her in that barn. "Water," she whispered. Her voice sounded like gravel. I poured a cup from the pitcher on the table and brought it over. She tried to take it with both hands, but they wouldn't cooperate, so I held it to her lips and let her drink slow. She got down 3 swallows before she pulled back. "Thank you," she said. The words came out quiet. Careful, like she wasn't sure they'd be safe. I set the cup down and went back to the chair. We sat there in the silence for a while. The fire crackled. The wind rattled the window. Somewhere outside a coyote called and another one answered. "What's your name?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just kept looking at me with those sharp green eyes like she was deciding whether telling me would cost her something. Finally she said, "Sadie." I nodded. "I'm Hank." She closed her eyes, opened them again. "Where am I?" "My ranch, about 8 miles outside Ashford." Her jaw tightened. "How long have I been here?" "Few hours. Found you in the barn this afternoon." She looked away, stared at the wall like it might tell her something I couldn't. "Who did this to you?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Sadie, I don't want to talk about it." Her voice was flat, final, the kind of tone that said pushing would only make things worse. So I didn't push. I just sat there with the shotgun and watched her breathe until her eyes closed again and she drifted back into something that might have been sleep, or might have just been exhaustion too deep to fight. I woke to the sound of the door opening. My hand went to the shotgun before my eyes were fully open. I was on my feet and a second barrel raised finger on the trigger. The door swung wide. Moonlight spilled across the floor. Sadie stood in the doorway. She was barefoot, still wearing the torn dress she'd had on when I found her. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She swayed a little, like standing was taking everything she had. She looked at me, at the shotgun, then past me toward the open land beyond the house. "I have to go," she said. Her voice was steady, too steady, like she'd made a decision and nothing I said was going to change it. I lowered the shotgun. "Go where?" "Anywhere." She took a step forward, winced. Her legs almost gave out, but she caught herself on the doorframe. "I can't stay here. You can barely walk. I'll manage." She pushed off the frame and took another step. This one was worse. Her knee buckled. She grabbed for the porch railing but missed. I caught her before she hit the ground. She fought me. Not hard, she didn't have the strength, but enough to make it clear she didn't want help, didn't want to be touched, didn't want to owe me anything. "Let me go," she said. "I will," I told her. "Soon as you can stand on your own." She tried. God, she tried. But her legs wouldn't hold her. After a few seconds she gave up and sagged against me, breathing hard. I helped her back inside, sat her down in the chair I'd been using. She stared at the floor, shoulders, tight hands clenched in her lap. "You don't have to stay," I said, "but you can't leave like this. Not in the middle of the night, not with no shoes and no strength." She didn't look up. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Silence. The fire popped. A log shifted. Sparks drifted up the chimney. He'll come back, she said finally. Her voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. And when he does, I need to be gone. Who? She shook her head. I pulled the other chair over and sat down across from her, close enough to talk, far enough that she didn't feel trapped. Listen, I said. I don't know what happened to you, and you don't have to tell me if you're not ready, but running in the dark with no plan is how people die out here. People die anyway. Maybe, but you don't have to make it easy for them. She looked up at me then, really looked, like she was trying to decide if I meant what I said or if I was just another man with another angle. Why do you care? She asked. Good question. I thought about it. Thought about Maggie and the war and Tombstone and all the times I'd stood still when I should have moved. Because I found you, I said, and that makes you my responsibility until you're strong enough to walk away on your own. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she looked back at the floor. I don't know where to go, she said. The words came out small, broken, like admitting it cost her something she didn't want to lose. Then stay here until you do. And if he comes, then he'll have to go through me first. She slept after that. Real sleep, not the fitful, half-conscious kind. I stayed in the chair with the shotgun and listened to the night settle in around us. Around 3 a.m, I heard them. Coyotes maybe half a mile out, yipping and calling to each other in that high, eerie way they have. Sadie stirred in the bed but didn't wake. I stepped outside. The air was cold, clear. The stars were so bright they looked like holes punched in the sky. I walked to the edge of the porch and looked out toward the barn. The doors were still open, still dark inside, but something about it felt different now, like it was waiting for something, or someone. I thought about the rope burns on Sadie's wrists, the way she'd tried to run even though she could barely stand, the fear in her voice when she said he'll come back. Whoever did this wasn't a stranger, wasn't some drifter passing through. This was personal, planned, the kind of thing a man does when he thinks he owns something, or someone. I went back inside. Sadie was still asleep. I sat down in the chair and checked the shotgun. Both barrels loaded, hammer back. If he came, I'd be ready. But the night stayed quiet. The coyotes moved on. The stars wheeled overhead. And by the time the sun started to lighten the eastern sky, I'd made a decision. This ranch was mine. This woman was under my roof. And anybody who wanted to change that was going to have to come through me first. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was the only one I had. The name Sadie Rowe. Morning came pale and cold, the kind of morning that makes you glad for coffee even if it's bitter enough to strip paint. I made a pot on the stove while Sadie slept. The smell filled the small house, strong, dark, familiar. It was the first thing that felt normal since I'd opened that barn door. She woke up around 7. I heard her moving in the other room, the creak of the bed, a sharp intake of breath that told me every muscle in her body was reminding her what had happened. I poured 2 cups and waited. She came out a few minutes later, still wearing the torn dress, hair pulled back now, tied with a strip of cloth she must have torn from something. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clearer than they'd been the night before. She looked at me, at the coffee, at the shotgun still leaning against the wall by the door. "Morning," I said. She nodded. Didn't say anything. I held out one of the cups. She took it with both hands like she needed the warmth more than the drink itself. She sat down at the table, slow, careful, like every movement hurt, and stared into the cup for a long moment before taking a sip. Her face twisted. "That's terrible." "I know. Tastes like dirt and old boots." "Pretty much." She took another sip anyway. Then another. By the third, she'd stopped making faces and just drank it like medicine. We sat there in silence. The morning light came through the cracked window, cutting the room into bright lines and shadow. Outside, a bird called. Another one answered. The world was waking up whether we were ready or not. After a while, Sadie set the cup down and looked at me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not asking questions." I nodded. "You'll tell me when you're ready." "What if I'm never ready?" "Then you won't tell me." She almost smiled at that. Almost. It didn't quite reach her eyes, but it was something. "You have a name?" I asked. "I mean, besides Sadie." She hesitated. Then, "Sadie Rowe." "Rowe," I repeated. "You from around here?" "Used to be." "Ashford." She nodded, looked away. "Long time ago." I didn't push, just sipped my own coffee and gave her the space to keep talking or stop, whichever she needed. She chose to keep talking. "I grew up there," she said. "My father had a small spread about 15 miles south. Raised horses. Good ones. People came from 3 towns over to buy from him." "What happened?" "He died. Heart gave out one morning while he was working the corral. I found him that evening." Her voice stayed flat, like she'd told the story enough times that it didn't cut anymore. "I was 19. "That's young? Old enough to know better?" She picked up the coffee cup again, held it but didn't drink. "I should have sold the place. Should have moved to town, found work, made a life that made sense." "But you didn't." "No, I got married instead." The way she said married made it sound like a mistake, the kind you see coming but walk into anyway because you don't know what else to do. "Man named Cal Turner," she continued. "He worked at the feed store in Ashford, big, strong, smiled a lot, said all the right things." She went quiet for a moment, stared at something I couldn't see. "He moved in after we were married, took over the horse business, said he'd handle the money, the buyers, all of it, said I didn't need to worry." She laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "I should have worried." "What did he do?" "Sold the horses, sold the land, forged my father's name on the deed, and told everyone I'd signed it over to him as my husband. By the time I realized what was happening, everything was gone. You go to the sheriff. Sheriff Wade." She shook her head. "He and Cal were friends, drinking buddies. Wade didn't want to hear it." I felt something tighten in my chest. Anger, maybe. Or just the familiar feeling of watching injustice happen and knowing there's not a damn thing you can do about it. "So you left him," I said. "I tried." She looked at me then. Really looked. 3 times. First time he found me at my cousin's place in Silver Creek, dragged me back, broke 2 of my ribs. I didn't say anything, just listened. Second time I made it to the train station in Ashford, had a ticket in my hand. He showed up 5 minutes before the train left. She touched her jaw like she was remembering. "That's when he broke this." And the third time, her hands tightened around the coffee cup. "Third time, I got smart. Waited until he was gone on a cattle drive. Took what I could carry and walked. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. Didn't leave a trail." "But he found you." She nodded. "He always does." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that sits on your shoulders and doesn't budge. "How long were you in that barn?" I asked. "I don't know. 2 days, maybe? 3. It's hard to tell when you can't see the sun. He put you there. Him and 2 other men. I didn't recognize them. Hired hands, probably." She set the cup down. "They tied me up, said the land was his and I was part of it. Said I'd be there until Cal decided what to do with me. And you didn't think anyone would find you. This place was supposed to be empty. That's why they chose it." She looked around the small kitchen. "How'd you end up here?" "Bought it 6 weeks ago. Just got here yesterday." She absorbed that, nodded slowly. "Lucky. For both of us." She didn't argue with that. We spent the rest of the morning in a kind of quiet routine. I went outside to check the property, walked the fence line, what there was of it. Most of it had fallen down or been carried off by the wind. The creek was dry. Wouldn't run again until the rains came, if they came. The barn bothered me. I stood outside it for a long time looking at those crooked doors, thinking about what I'd found inside, thinking about what could have happened if I'd arrived a day later. When I came back to the house, Sadie was standing on the porch. She'd found a shawl somewhere, probably left behind by the previous owner, and wrapped it around her shoulders. She looked steadier than she had that morning. Color was coming back to her face. "You should rest," I said. "I've been resting. I'm sick of it." "Fair enough." She came down off the porch, slow and careful, and walked a few steps into the yard. Her bare feet pressed into the dirt. She looked out at the land, flat and empty and quiet, and I saw something shift in her expression. "It's peaceful here," she said. "For now." She glanced back at me. "You think he'll come?" "I know he will." "How do you know?" "Because men like that don't leave loose ends, and you're a loose end." She thought about that, nodded. "So what do? We prepare." "How?" I looked at her, at the bruises, at the rope burns hidden under the bandages, at the way she was standing straight-backed, chin up, even though I knew it hurt. "You learn to fight back," I said. That night I gave her the bed again and took the floor. She argued about it, but not much. Truth was, she needed the rest more than I did. And I'd slept on worse floors in worse places. I kept the shotgun close, kept the door barred, listened to the night sounds, and waited for the one that didn't belong. Around midnight I heard her moving. Thought she was just shifting in her sleep, but then I heard the creak of the floorboards, the soft pad of bare feet. I opened my eyes. Sadie was standing by the window. She'd pulled the curtain back just enough to see out. Moonlight caught the side of her face, made her look like a ghost. "Can't sleep?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that barn." I sat up. "That'll fade." "Will it?" Honest answer, I didn't know. Some things fade. Some things just learn to live in a different corner of your head. "Come sit," I said. "I'll make more coffee. It's midnight." "So?" She almost smiled at that. Came over and sat at the table while I got the fire going again and put the pot on. The coffee was just as bad as it had been that morning, but we drank it anyway. "You ever been married?" she asked. "Once." "What happened?" "She died." "I'm sorry." I shrugged. "It was 6 weeks ago. Still feels like yesterday." "What was her name?" "Maggie." Sadie wrapped her hands around the cup. "You loved her." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yeah, I did." "Did she know about whatever it is you're running from?" I looked up at her. "What makes you think I'm running from something?" "Because you're here. Because you look like a man who bought land in the middle of nowhere because he didn't want to be found." She met my eyes. "It takes one to know one." She was right, of course. I thought about telling her, about Tombstone and Billy and the woman in the fire and all the reasons I didn't sleep much anymore. But I wasn't ready yet. Maybe I'd never be ready. "We all got ghosts," I said instead. "Yeah." She looked into her cup. "We do." We sat there until the coffee was gone and the fire had burned down to embers. Then she went back to bed and I went back to the floor, and we both pretended to sleep while the night stretched on around us. 3 days passed. Sadie got stronger. Not all the way healing takes time, but enough that she could walk to the porch and back without needing to sit down. Enough that she could hold a cup without her hands shaking. I spent those days working on the house, fixed the broken windows, patched the roof, reinforced the door. Small things that needed doing anyway, but also things that would make the place easier to defend if it came to that. And I thought it would come to that. On the 4th morning I woke up to find Sadie standing in the kitchen with a knife in her hand. Not threatening, just holding it, looking at it like she was trying to decide something. "Morning," I said. She looked up. "Can you teach me?" "Teach you what?" She held up the knife. "How to use this. How to fight. How to make sure next time I'm not the one tied up in a barn." I studied her face, saw the determination there, the anger, the fear underneath it all held tight and controlled. "You sure?" I asked. I'm sure. I nodded. All right. But we're not starting with a knife. Why not? Because a knife's only useful if you're close enough to use it. And if a man gets that close, you've already lost half the fight. Then what? I walked to the corner where I'd leaned my rifle the night before, picked it up, held it out to her. We start with this. She took it. The weight surprised her. I could see it in the way her arms dipped, but she held it steady. Have you ever fired a gun? I asked. Once, when I was 12, my father taught me. Good. Then you know the basics. We went outside. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky pink and orange and gold. I set up some old cans on the fence, what was left of it, and showed her how to stand, how to aim, how to breathe. Don't rush it, I said. Take your time, feel the weight, get comfortable. She nodded, raised the rifle, sighted down the barrel. She pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, missed the can by a good 3 feet. She swore under her breath, lowered the rifle. Again, I said. She tried, missed again, and again, and again. By the 10th shot she was shaking, not from fear, from frustration. I can't do this, she said. You can. I can't hit anything. Not yet. But you will. She turned to look at me. How do you know? Because you're still trying. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she raised the rifle again. The 11th shot rang out. The can jumped, fell. She lowered the rifle slow, stared at the fence like she couldn't quite believe what she'd just done. There, I said. That's how you start. That afternoon a rider came up the road. I saw the dust first, then the shape of a horse and man moving slow, not in a hurry, but deliberate. I stepped out onto the porch with the shotgun. Sadie stayed inside, but I could see her watching through the window. The rider stopped about 20 yards out, raised his hand in greeting. Afternoon, he called. I didn't answer, just stood there with the shotgun and waited. The man was older, maybe 60. He wore a badge pinned to his vest, silver star, tarnished and dull. Sheriff Wade. You the new owner? He asked. I am. Name's Marcus Wade, sheriff over in Ashford. Hank Mercer. He nodded, looked past me at the house, at the barn. Settling in all right. Well enough. Good, good. He shifted in his saddle. I heard you might have found something out here, something that doesn't belong to you. My grip tightened on the shotgun. And what would that be? A woman, Sadie Rowe. She's wanted for... She's not wanted for anything, I said, and she's under my protection. Wade's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're getting into, Mercer. Then help me understand. He hesitated, glanced back toward the road like he was expecting someone. Cal Turner owns the land this place sits on, legal papers and everything, and Sadie's his wife. That makes her his property. She says different. She would. You check those papers. Don't need to. Cal's a respected man in Ashford, got friends, got influence. Wade leaned forward in his saddle. You'd do well to hand her over and mind your own business. She is my business. She was left in my barn to die. Cal said she ran off. Said she's not right in the head. Probably hurt herself trying to get away. I felt something cold settle in my gut. You believe that... Wade didn't answer right away, and in that silence I saw it. The truth he didn't want to say out loud. He knew. He'd always known. It doesn't matter what I believe, he said finally. It matters what I can prove. And right now, all I got is Cal's word against hers. And mine. You just got here. You don't know how things work in Ashford. Then teach me. Wade sighed, rubbed his face with one hand. Go home, Mercer. Let this go. It's not your fight. It is now. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he turned his horse and started back down the road. But before he got too far, he called back over his shoulder. Cal's not a patient man, and he doesn't like losing. You keep that in mind. Then he rode off, leaving nothing but dust and the sound of hooves fading into the distance. I stood there on the porch until he was out of sight. Then I went back inside. Sadie was sitting at the table. Her face was pale. He's coming, she said. I know. What do we do? I set the shotgun on the table. We get ready. The rifle and the tears. The next morning, Sadie was waiting for me on the porch before the sun cleared the ridge. She had the rifle in her hands. Not holding it right, her grip was too tight, her shoulders too tense, but holding it all the same. "I want to try again," she said. I poured myself the last of the coffee from the pot I'd made at dawn. It had gone cold and bitter, but I drank it anyway. "You sure?" I asked. "I missed yesterday. I need to do better." "You hit 1 can out of 11 tries. That's not missing. That's learning." She shook her head. "It's not good enough. If Cal comes with 2 men, I need to hit what I'm aiming at. Every time." I looked at her. Really looked. The bruises on her face had faded, some gone from purple to yellow-green. The rope burns on her wrists were healing under the bandages. But her eyes, those sharp green eyes, they held something new. Determination. The kind that doesn't bend. "All right," I said. "Let's get to work." We went out to the same spot. I set up more cans on what was left of the fence. The morning was cool, the kind of cool that makes you grateful for the sun when it finally arrives. The land stretched out around us empty and quiet. I showed her the stance again, how to plant her feet, how to settle the rifle against her shoulder so the kick didn't knock her back. "Don't fight the weapon," I said. "Let it do what it's meant to do. You're just there to point it in the right direction." She nodded, raised the rifle, breathed in, breathed out, fired. The shot went wide, not as far as yesterday, but still wide. She lowered the rifle. Reset, tried again. Miss. Again. Miss. By the 10th shot, her hands were shaking. Not from the weight of the rifle, though that wasn't helping, but from something deeper. Frustration. Anger. Fear that she'd never get this right. The 11th shot didn't even come close. The can sat there on the fence, mocking her. She lowered the rifle and just stood there. Her jaw was clenched so tight I thought she might crack a tooth. "Again," I said. "It's not working." "It will. Keep trying." She raised the rifle. Her hands were shaking worse now. She fired. The shot went into the dirt about 6 feet in front of the fence. "Damn it!" She threw the rifle down. It hit the dirt and bounced once. I didn't say anything, just stood there and let her feel what she was feeling. She stood with her back to me, shoulders tight, breathing hard. Then quietly I heard it, crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just small broken sounds that she was trying to keep inside and failing. I walked over and sat down on the ground a few feet away from her. Not too close, just close enough that she'd know I wasn't leaving. After a minute she sat down too, put her face in her hands, and cried like she'd been holding it in for years. Maybe she had. I let her cry. Didn't try to stop it. Didn't tell her it was going to be okay. Sometimes people need to break before they can build themselves back up. When the tears slowed, she wiped her face with the back of her hand and stared out at the empty land. "I can't do anything right," she said. Her voice was raw, exhausted. "I couldn't keep my father's land. Couldn't leave my husband. Couldn't stop him from putting me in that barn. And now I can't even hit a damn can." "You're still here," I said. "That's more than most people could say." "Barely. Barely's enough." She looked at me then. Her eyes were red and swollen, but there was something else there too. A question. "How do you do it?" she asked. "How do you keep going when you've failed at everything that mattered?" I thought about that. Thought about Maggie and the war and Tombstone and all the ways I'd failed people who needed me. "You find something smaller to succeed at," I said. "Something you can actually do, and you do it. Then you find the next thing, and the next, until the small things start to add up." "Like what?" "Like getting out of bed when you don't want to, like drinking coffee that tastes like dirt because it's better than nothing, like picking up that rifle one more time even though you think you can't." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up, walked over to where the rifle was lying in the dirt, picked it up. "Tell me what I'm doing wrong," she said. So I did. I showed her how she was anticipating the recoil, flinching before she even pulled the trigger, how her breathing was all wrong, too fast, too shallow. how she was trying to muscle the rifle instead of letting it rest naturally. First time I learned to shoot, I said I missed 15 times in a row. The man teaching me didn't laugh, didn't get angry, just said, "Try again." "Who was he?" Sadie asked. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't meant to bring him up, but now that I had, I couldn't take it back. "A friend," I said, "long time ago." "What happened to him?" "I lost him." She didn't push, just nodded like she understood that some losses don't have explanations that make them hurt less. She raised the rifle again. This time she did what I'd showed her. Planted her feet, settled the stock against her shoulder, breathed slow and deep. She pulled the trigger. The can jumped, fell. She lowered the rifle slow, stared at the fence like she couldn't quite believe what she'd just done. "There," I said. "Now do it again." She did, and missed. But on the next shot she hit, and the one after that. By the time the sun was high overhead, she'd hit 5 out of 10. Not perfect, but better. And more importantly, she hadn't cried again, hadn't thrown the rifle down, hadn't given up. We walked back to the house in silence. She was exhausted. I could see it in the way she moved, but there was something different in her step now. Something that looked a lot like hope. That evening we sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. The sky turned orange and pink and purple colors so bright they almost didn't look real. Sadie had cleaned up, found a dress in the house that must have belonged to the previous owner. It was too big for her, but it was clean. She'd washed her hair in the creek and tied it back with a piece of string. She looked more like a person now, less like something that had been broken and thrown away. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on me this morning, when I threw the rifle. Most men would have told me I was being foolish." "Most men are fools." She almost smiled. "You're not like most men." "Don't know about that." "I do." She looked at me. "You could have left me in that barn, could have ridden away and told yourself it wasn't your problem, but you didn't." I thought about the woman in the fire, the sound of her voice calling for help while I stood outside frozen. "I've left people before," I said, "when they needed me most. I'm trying not to do that anymore." "What happened?" I hesitated. The story of Tombstone sat in my throat like a stone, but I wasn't ready to spit it out yet. Not all of it. "I made a mistake once," I said. "A bad one. And someone died because of it." "Just one?" "No. More than one." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "We all got blood on our hands, Hank. The only difference is, some of us are honest about it." Maybe she was right. Maybe we were both just two people trying to outrun the things we'd done, or the things we'd failed to do. The sun dropped below the ridge. The land went blue and then gray and then dark. "He's coming soon," Sadie said. It wasn't a question. "I know." "What do we do when he gets here?" "We stand our ground." "And if that's not enough," I looked at her, at the rifle leaning against the wall behind us, at the determination in her eyes that hadn't been there a week ago. "Then we make sure he remembers what it costs to underestimate people." The name Cal Turner. 2 days later, Sadie told me the rest of her story. We were sitting at the table after dinner, beans and salt pork that I'd burned a little but not enough to throw out. The lamp cast long shadows across the walls. Outside, the wind was picking up, rattling the windows. "I need to tell you about Cal," she said. "You don't have to." "I do. If he's coming, you need to know what kind of man you're dealing with." I poured us both coffee, waited. She wrapped her hands around the cup like she was trying to draw warmth from it. "We were married once," she said. "Long time ago, feels like, but it's only been 3 years." 3 years. That's all it took to turn a young woman into someone who looked like she'd lived 50. "I met him in Ashford," she continued. "He worked at the feed store. Big man, strong, always smiling, always knew what to say. My father had just died and I was trying to run the horse ranch by myself, failing at it mostly." She took a sip of coffee, grimaced, kept talking. Cal started coming around, offering to help, fix a fence, mend a gate. Small things at first. I thought he was being neighborly, kind. He wasn't. No, he was hunting. The word hung in the air between us. Hunting. Like she was game, something to be tracked and trapped. He proposed after 2 months. I said yes because I was tired and scared and I thought having someone there would make things easier. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I was young, stupid. You were alone, I said. That's not the same thing. She looked at me, nodded. The wedding was small, just us and the preacher and a few people from town. Martha Keene came, Sheriff Wade, a handful of others. Everyone smiled. Everyone said congratulations. No one asked me if I was sure. Would you have told them if they had? I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. She stared into her coffee cup like she could see the past in there. Things were fine for about a week. Then he started changing. Little things at first, telling me I'd cooked the meal wrong, that I'd talked too much at church, that I needed to dress different, act different. I'd heard this story before, not from Sadie but from other women. Different details, same shape. Then one night I disagreed with him about something. I don't even remember what. Something small. He grabbed my wrist, twisted it until I apologized. Her hand went to her wrist without her thinking about it, the one that still had bandages on it. He said he was sorry afterward, said it wouldn't happen again, said he just got frustrated sometimes and didn't know his own strength. But it did happen again. 2 days later. And the time after that, he didn't apologize. She told me the rest in pieces, how Cal had taken over the ranch, how he'd sold the horses one by one, pocketing the money, how he'd started bringing men around, rough men who drank too much and looked at her in ways that made her skin crawl, how he'd forged her father's signature on documents she didn't understand until it was too late, how the land had become his legally in the eyes of anyone who cared to look. I tried to leave the first time after he broke my ribs, she said. Made it to my cousin's place in Silver Creek. Thought I was safe, but Cal found me 3 days later. Your cousin told him where you were. No, Cal just knew. He always knew. Like he could smell me or something. She paused, took a breath. He dragged me back, told everyone I'd gotten confused, that I wasn't right in the head, that he was taking care of me. Her voice went flat. And they believed him. Because Cal was charming, Cal was respectable, Cal had friends. And you were just his wife, just his property. I felt anger rising in my chest, the kind that makes you want to put a fist through a wall, but I kept it down, let her talk. Second time I tried to leave, I made it to the train station, had a ticket in my hand. Cal showed up 5 minutes before the train left. She touched her jaw. That's when he broke this. Sheriff, do anything. Wade told me I should go home, that running away wasn't the answer, that Cal was a good man who just wanted his wife back. I thought about Wade sitting on his horse outside my property, the way he'd looked away when he talked about Cal, the truth he knew but wouldn't say. Third time, I asked. Third time was 6 weeks ago. Cal went on a cattle drive, said he'd be gone 2 weeks. I waited until he was 3 days gone, then I took what I could carry and walked. Didn't tell anyone, didn't leave a trail. But he found you. She nodded. He came back early, tracked me for 2 days, caught me near the old Simmons place about 15 miles from here. Her hands were shaking now. I could see the memory playing behind her eyes. He had 2 men with him. I didn't know their names. Hired muscle, probably. Cal said he'd been looking for a place to put me where I couldn't embarrass him anymore. Said this ranch was perfect. Empty. Far from town. No one would hear me scream. Did you? Scream once, when they first grabbed me. Cal hit me so hard I saw stars. Told me if I made another sound he'd cut my tongue out. She touched her lips. I believed him. They tied you up in the barn. Not right away. First they brought me here. Cal walked through the house like he owned it. Said he had paperwork showing this land was his. Some old land grant from before my father bought it. Said it was all legal, all proper. Was it? I don't know. Maybe. Cal's good at making lies look like truth." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "They kept me in the house that first night, tied to a chair. Cal talked about what he was going to do with the place, how he'd sell it, make a profit, move on to the next thing. He didn't mention you. Not as a person, just as a problem he needed to solve." The way she said it, flat matter of fact, made it worse somehow, like she'd accepted that this was how men like Cal saw women like her. Next morning they moved me to the barn. Cal said I'd stay there until he decided what to do. Said he might come back, might not. Depended on how things went in town. He was going to let you die. He was going to let the desert decide. If I lived, maybe he'd reconsider. If I died, well, that solved his problem without him having to get his hands too dirty. She looked at me then. Her eyes were dry, but there was pain in them. The kind that runs so deep it doesn't need tears anymore. "He left me there 3 days ago, maybe 4. I lost track. I thought that was it. Thought I'd die in that barn and no one would ever know. No one would care." "I would have cared," I said. "Even if I'd found you too late. I would have cared." She reached across the table, put her hand on mine. It was the first time she'd touched me on purpose. "I know," she said. "That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on the floor in the dark and thought about Sadie's story, about Cal and the men he'd hired, about Sheriff Wade looking the other way, about a town full of people who'd seen the bruises and heard the rumors and done nothing. I thought about Maggie, how she'd asked me once why I never talked about the war, why I woke up some nights with my hands in fists ready to fight enemies that weren't there. I'd told her some men carry the war home with them, that it becomes part of who they are. She'd asked if I was one of those men. I'd said yes, but I'd never told her about Tombstone, never told her about the boy who died, or the woman who burned, or the friend who became an enemy, because I'd stood still when I should have moved. Some secrets are too heavy to share, even with the people you love. I thought about what Sadie had said. We all got blood on our hands. She was right. The only question was what you did about it. You could run, spend your whole life putting miles between you and your mistakes, or you could stand, face the thing you'd been running from, let it try to break you and see if you broke. I'd been running for 15 years, ever since Tombstone, ever since I'd buried my friendship with Roar in the same grave as his son. Maybe it was time to stop. The wind rattled the window. Somewhere outside a coyote called. Another one answered. I got up and checked the shotgun, both barrels loaded, hammer back. If Cal Turner wanted to come for Sadie, he'd have to come through me first. And this time, I wouldn't stand still. The bell and the boots. Morning came gray and cold, the kind of morning that makes you think about winter even though spring's barely started. I found boot prints by the creek. I'd gone out early to check the property. Walking the perimeter had become a habit, looking for signs, listening for sounds that didn't belong. The land teaches you things if you pay attention, like how birds go quiet when something dangerous is near, how horses get restless before a storm, how boot prints in mud mean someone's been watching. There were 2 sets. Both recent, couldn't have been more than a day old. They came up from the south, followed the creek bed for about 50 yards, then turned back. Someone had been scouting. I knelt down and looked closer. The prints were deep. Heavy men. One of them had a nick in the heel of his boot. The other had boots that were too big, judging by how the toes dragged a little with each step. I found cigarette butts nearby, hand-rolled, still relatively fresh. They'd stood here for a while, watching the house, watching the barn, deciding. I followed the tracks as far as I could. They led back south toward the old Simmons place Sadie had mentioned, about 5 miles out, close enough to get here quick if they wanted to. When I got back to the house, Sadie was on the porch. She took one look at my face and knew. "They were here," she said. "Not here, but close, by the creek." "How many?" "2 sets of tracks. Could be scouts. Could be Cal sent them to see if you were still here." Her jaw tightened. "He knows." "Probably." She looked out at the land like she was trying to see through it, find the men who were out there somewhere planning. "What do we do?" she asked. "We prepare." I spent the rest of the morning setting up defenses. It wasn't much, this wasn't a fort and I wasn't an army, but it was something. I hung a bell on the gate at the end of the road. Small brass thing I'd found in the barn. If anyone came up that road, the bell would ring. Give us warning. I checked every window, made sure they could be barred from inside, found some old boards in the barn and reinforced the door. It wouldn't stop a determined man, but it would slow him down. I loaded every weapon I had. The shotgun, the rifle, the pistol I kept in my bedroll, set ammunition where I could reach it quick. Sadie watched me work. Didn't ask questions, just helped where she could. By noon, the house looked less like a home and more like a place preparing for a siege. "You've done this before," Sadie said. It wasn't a question. "The war taught me a few things." "Like what?" "Like how to stay alive when people want you dead." She thought about that. "You think Cal wants me dead?" "I think Cal wants you gone. Dead's just one way to make that happen." "And you?" "Me what? Does he want you dead too?" I looked at her, at the fear in her eyes that she was trying to hide behind questions. "Probably," I said. "Men like Cal don't like being challenged, and I challenged him when I kept you here. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I made my choice." "Why?" "Why what? Why risk your life for someone you barely know?" I thought about Billy Rohr, about the woman in the fire, about all the times I'd stood still and let bad things happen because I told myself it wasn't my fight. "Because I'm tired of standing still," I said. That afternoon I found more signs, fresh horse droppings on the south trail. Someone had ridden past in the last day or two close enough to see the house but not close enough to be seen. A broken branch on a tree near the ridge, snapped at about shoulder height, the kind of break that happens when someone's leaning against a tree watching. Small things, easy to miss if you weren't looking. But I was looking. I came back to the house as the sun was starting to drop. Sadie was inside cleaning the rifle. She'd gotten better at it, moved with confidence now, checked the chamber, worked the bolt, handled it like it was an extension of her arm instead of something foreign and dangerous. "He's close, isn't he?" she said without looking up. "Yeah." "How long do we have?" "Hard to say. Could be tonight, could be tomorrow, could be a week. But he's coming. He's coming." She set the rifle down, looked at me. "I won't go back to him, Hank. I'd rather die." "You're not going to die." "You can't promise that." "No. But I can promise I'll do everything I can to make sure you don't." She nodded, picked the rifle back up. "Then I guess we wait." We ate dinner as the sun went down. Beans again. I was getting better at cooking them, they only burned a little this time. Sadie made bread in the oven, flour and water and salt, nothing fancy, but it tasted like home anyway. We ate in silence, the kind of silence that comes when there's nothing left to say and too much to think about. After dinner I went outside to check the bell one more time. The wind was picking up. The sky was clear, but there was a feel in the air, like the weather was thinking about changing. I stood there in the dark listening. The land was quiet. No coyotes, no night birds, just the wind moving through the grass and the distant sound of the creek still mostly dry. Too quiet. I went back inside and barred the door. "What is it?" Sadie asked. "Nothing. Maybe." That's not reassuring. Wasn't meant to be. I sat down in the chair by the window, the shotgun across my knees. Sadie sat at the table with the rifle. We didn't talk, just waited. Around midnight I heard it. Soft, distant, but unmistakable. The bell. Someone was coming up the road. The friend I lost. I motioned for Sadie to stay quiet. She nodded, moved to the window on the far side of the room where she could see out without being seen. I stood by the door, listening. The bell rang again, then stopped. Whoever was out there had stopped, maybe 50 yards from the house, just standing there. I waited, counted heartbeats, tried to keep my breathing steady. Then I heard it. A voice, distant but clear in the night air. Hank Mercer. Not Cal's voice. Older, rougher. I didn't recognize it, but something about it made my chest tighten. Hank Mercer. I know you're in there. Sadie looked at me, mouthed, "Who is that?" I shook my head, didn't know, but I was starting to have a bad feeling. The voice called again. "I'm not here for the woman, I'm here for you." I moved to the window, looked out through a gap in the boards. There was a man on horseback, silhouetted against the stars. I couldn't see his face, but I could see his shape. Big, broad-shouldered, sitting in the saddle like he'd been born there. "What do you want?" I called back. "Just to talk. Been a long time, Hank." My blood went cold. That voice, I knew it now. Older, rougher, but the same. Roar. Sadie looked at me. "You know him?" "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded strange even to me. "I know him." "From where?" "From before." I unbarred the door, stepped out onto the porch. The shotgun stayed in my hands, but I didn't raise it. The man on the horse didn't move, just sat there watching me. "You going to invite me in?" he called. "Or are we going to have this conversation shouting at each other?" "Depends on what you want to talk about." "The past." "What else?" He dismounted, slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. As he walked closer, I could see his face in the moonlight. Older than I remembered, lines around his eyes, gray in his beard, but the same sharp features, the same way of moving like he was always ready for a fight. Roar stopped about 10 feet from the porch, looked at me, looked at the shotgun. "You still wear the same boots," he said. It was such a strange thing to say that I almost laughed. Almost. "You still carry that scar on your hand," I replied. He held up his left hand. There was a long scar across the palm. Got it in a knife fight in Denver years ago. I'd been there when it happened. "Some things don't change," Roar said. "Most things do." True enough. We stood there, two old men looking at each other across 15 years of silence and all the things we couldn't take back. "Why are you here?" I asked. "Heard you bought land out this way. Wanted to see if it was true. Wanted to see if you were still alive." "And now you know." "Now I know." He looked past me at the house, at the window where Sadie was watching. "That the woman they're talking about in Ashford?" he asked. "The one Cal Turner's looking for. She's under my protection." "That's what I heard." He looked back at me. "You always did have a habit of picking up strays." "She's not a stray." "No, I reckon she's not." He paused. "You know what you're getting into. I'm figuring it out. Cal Turner's got friends, got money, got influence. He won't just let this go. I'm counting on that." Roar smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "You're looking for a fight. I'm looking to keep my word." "Since when did you start keeping your word?" The question hit like a fist, because he was right. The last time I'd made a promise to Roar, I'd broken it in the worst way possible. "I'm trying to be better," I said. 15 years too late for that." "I know." We stood in silence for a moment. The wind moved between us. Somewhere far off an owl called. "I didn't come here to shoot you, Hank," Roar said finally. "Not tonight, anyway." "Then why did you come?" "To see if you remembered." "Remembered what?" "Tombstone, Billy, the woman in the fire, all of it." My hands tightened on the shotgun. "I remember." "Do you, or do you just tell yourself you do so you can sleep at night?" "I don't sleep much." "Good, you shouldn't." He turned back toward his horse, stopped, looked over his shoulder. "I taught you how to shoot, remember. Taught you how to track, how to read a man's intentions before he acted on them. Guess you forgot everything else I taught you." I didn't forget. "Could have fooled me." He mounted his horse, sat there for a moment silhouetted against the stars. "This ain't over, Mercer," he said. "Cal Turner might come for that woman, but I'm coming for you. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon." Why wait? Because I want you to think about it. Want you to remember what you did, what you didn't do. Want you to wake up every morning wondering if today's the day. He pulled the reins. The horse turned. Oh, and Hank, he called back. You might want to check the ridge trail tomorrow morning. Someone left you a message. Then he rode off into the dark, leaving nothing but the sound of hooves and the echo of a past I thought I'd buried. I stood on the porch for a long time after he'd gone. The shotgun felt heavy in my hands. My chest felt heavier. Sadie came out, stood beside me. "Who was that?" she asked. "A ghost." He didn't look like a ghost. The worst ones never do. She waited, didn't push, just stood there until I was ready to talk. "His name's Roar," I said. "Robert Kincaid, but everyone called him Roar. We rode together years ago, before the war, during it, after. You were friends. We were brothers, or close enough to it. What happened?" I looked at her, at the concern in her eyes, at the trust she was putting in me even though she barely knew me. "I let his son die," I said, "and then I ran. I didn't sleep that night, just sat in the chair by the window and watched the dark. Sadie went to bed eventually. I heard her moving around in the next room, heard the bed creak when she lay down, heard her breathing even out as she drifted off. But I stayed awake, thinking about Roar, about Billy, about the way the past never really stays buried no matter how much dirt you throw on it. When I closed my eyes, I saw them. Roar and Billy and me 15 years younger, back when things were simple, back before Tombstone. 15 years earlier, Tombstone, Arizona, 1863. The sun was a hammer that day, the kind of heat that makes you wonder if you've done something to anger God. I was 25 years old. Roar was 30. Billy was 8. We were in Tombstone for work, the kind of work that doesn't ask questions. A job that involved a bank and a safe and 5 men who didn't mind bending the law when the price was right. But that morning before everything went wrong, we were just sitting outside the hotel drinking coffee that wasn't much better than what I make now watching Billy play in the street. He had a wooden horse, small thing carved rough. Roar had made it for him the year before. Billy carried it everywhere, talked to it like it could talk back. "Uncle Hank," he called, "watch this." He made the horse gallop across the dirt, made sound effects, got so into it that he tripped over his own feet and went down hard. Roar started to get up, but Billy was already back on his feet laughing, horse clutched in his hand. "He's tough," I said. "Gets it from his mother," Roar replied. Billy's mother had died 2 years earlier. Fever took her quick. Billy didn't remember her much. Roar remembered her enough for both of them. "You ever think about settling down?" I asked. "Finding a place, raising him proper." "You mean quit this life?" "Yeah." Roar was quiet for a moment. Watched his son play. Every day. But then I remember I'm not suited for farming, or ranching, or any honest work really. "You could learn. So could you. But here we are." He was right. We were both running from something. The war mostly. The things we'd seen, the things we'd done. Hard to go back to planting corn when you've spent 3 years watching boys die in mud. "One more job," Roar said. "That's what I tell myself. One more and then I'll have enough to buy a place. Set Billy up right." "How many times you told yourself that?" He laughed. "Too many." Billy came running over. "I'm hungry." "You're always hungry," Roar said, but he smiled when he said it, reached out and ruffled the boy's hair. "All right, let's get you fed." We went to the saloon. Had stew that was mostly water, but Billy ate it like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Roar and I talked about the job, about the timing, about who would go where, about how easy it was supposed to be. Easy. That word should have been a warning. The job went bad fast. Someone had talked. Someone always talks. The law was waiting when we hit the bank. Not just the sheriff, a whole posse, like they knew we were coming. Shots fired. Someone screamed. A lamp got knocked over and oil spilled across the floor. Fire. Always fire. I was outside when it started. Roar was inside with 2 other men. I heard the shots, heard the shouting, heard the roar as the flames caught. I should have gone in, should have helped, but I froze, because I'd seen fire before, seen what it did to men, heard the sounds they made when it took them. My father died in a barn fire when I was 12. I'd been outside when it happened, heard him calling for help, couldn't get to him, couldn't do anything but stand there and listen while he burned. And now, 15 years later, I was standing outside another fire listening to another voice call for help. Only this time, it wasn't my father. It was a woman, trapped inside the building next to the bank. The fire had spread, and somewhere in the chaos Billy had run into the street, looking for his father, looking for me, looking for someone to tell him it was going to be okay. I saw him running through the smoke and the confusion, saw him stumble, saw the gun go off. I don't know whose gun, never found out, and saw Billy fall. Just like that. 1 second he was moving, the next he was on the ground. The wooden horse rolled out of his hand and stopped a few feet away in the dirt. I stood there, 20 feet from him, close enough to get to him, close enough to help. But I didn't move, because the woman in the burning building was screaming, because the fire was spreading, because I was 25 years old and I'd already seen too many people die, and I didn't know which way to go. So I went nowhere. I stood still, and while I stood there, Billy died in the dust, and the woman died in the fire. And Roar came out of the smoke looking for his son and found him lying there with a bullet in his chest. Roar looked at Billy, looked at me, looked at the distance between us. He knew. In that moment he knew I could have reached Billy, could have tried, could have done something, but I'd done nothing. His eyes, God, his eyes, they went from grief to understanding to something cold and final. He didn't say anything, just knelt down and picked up his son, held him like Billy was just sleeping, like if he held him tight enough, Billy might wake up. I walked toward him. Roar, don't. His voice was flat, dead. Just don't. I'm sorry. Sorry, don't bring him back. I froze. I didn't. You stood there. He looked up at me, tears cutting lines through the soot on his face. My boy called for you, and you stood there. I had no answer to that, because it was true. I stood there while Billy Roar died, stood there while a woman burned, stood there because I was afraid of fire and afraid of death and afraid of everything that mattered. That night I left Tombstone, didn't say goodbye, didn't go to the funeral, just packed what little I had and rode out under cover of darkness. Spent the next 15 years trying to convince myself I'd done the only thing I could, but I knew the truth. I'd stood still when I should have moved, and a boy died because of it. Present day, the ranch. I opened my eyes. The sun was coming up. Gray light filled the room. Sadie was awake, sitting at the table, looking at me. You were talking in your sleep, she said. What did I say? Billy, you kept saying, I'm sorry, Billy. I stood up, stretched. My back hurt from sitting in the chair all night. The man last night, Sadie said. Roar. Billy was his son. Yeah. And you, I let him die. Stood 20 feet away and watched him bleed out because I was too scared to move. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what scared you? Fire. There was a woman trapped in a burning building. I could hear her screaming. And Billy was in the street and I didn't know which way to go. So I went nowhere. How old were you? 25. That's young. Old enough to know better. Maybe. Or maybe you were just a person in an impossible situation who froze because that's what people do sometimes. I looked at her. You defending me? No. Just saying that carrying that for 15 years doesn't change what happened, doesn't bring Billy back, just makes you heavier. She was right, of course. But knowing something and feeling it are 2 different things. Roar said he left me a message. I said, on the ridge trail. I'm going to go check. I'm coming with you. Sadie, I'm coming. You're not leaving me here alone. Fair enough. We saddled the horse and rode out as the sun cleared the ridge. We found the message about a mile up the trail. It wasn't much, just a small wooden horse. The paint was faded, the legs were uneven. But I recognized it immediately. Billy's horse, the one Roar had carved for him, the one that had rolled out of the boy's hand when he fell. It was placed carefully on a flat rock, like it was waiting for me to find it. Next to it was a piece of paper held down by a smaller stone. I picked up the paper. Read it. You took my son. Now I'll take what matters to you. We'll see if you stand still this time. Sadie read it over my shoulder. He's going to come after me, she said. No, he's coming after me. You're just leverage. Same thing. Not to me. I looked at the wooden horse, picked it up, turned it over in my hands. 15 years. Roar had carried this for 15 years. A reminder of what he'd lost, of what I'd failed to do. And now he was here, ready to make me pay. The question was, would I stand still this time, or would I finally do what I should have done 15 years ago? We rode back to the ranch in silence. The wooden horse was in my pocket. The note was burned, didn't need to keep it. The words were already burned into my memory. When we got back, Sadie went inside to make coffee. I stood outside and looked at the land. 2 threats now. Cal Turner coming for Sadie, Roar coming for me. Both of them would be here soon. Both of them wanted something I wasn't willing to give. The question was which one would arrive first. I didn't have to wait long for the answer. Just as the sun reached its peak, I heard it. The bell at the gate, ringing slow, deliberate. Someone was coming up the road. I grabbed the shotgun and stepped onto the porch. Sadie was right behind me, rifle in hand. 3 riders came into view, moving slow, not in a hurry, like they had all the time in the world. 2 stayed back. 1 rode ahead. I didn't need to see his face to know who it was. Cal Turner had come for his wife, and the reckoning was about to begin. The reckoning at dusk. Cal Turner rode like a man who'd never been told no. He sat high in the saddle, shoulders back, hat tipped just so. The kind of posture that said he owned everything he could see and most of what he couldn't. He was bigger than I expected. Not tall, but broad, thick through the chest and arms. The kind of man who'd learned early that size mattered and spent his whole life using it. Behind him, the 2 other riders stayed back. One was lean and nervous-looking, eyes darting around like he expected trouble. The other was older, heavier, with a face that had been broken and healed wrong more than once. Cal stopped about 30 yards from the porch, didn't dismount, just sat there looking at the house, at me, at the shotgun in my hands. Then his eyes found Sadie. She stood beside me, rifle raised, pointed at his chest. Her hands were steady. Her face was set like stone. "Well, I'll be damned," Cal said. His voice was smooth, pleasant even, like he was greeting an old friend. "You're tougher than you look, Sadie girl." "Don't call me that," she said. Her voice didn't shake. Cal smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "What should I call you then, wife?" "That's what you are legally speaking." "Not anymore. Papers say different. Papers can be burned." His smile widened. "That's the Sadie I married. Always had spirit. Just needed to be reminded where it belongs." I stepped forward. "You're on my land, Turner. State your business or leave." Cal finally looked at me. Really looked. Sizing me up the way a man sizes up a fence he's thinking about kicking down. "Your land," he said. "That's interesting, because the deed I got says this land's been in my family for 3 generations. Old Spanish grant, all legal and proper. Then your deed's a lie. Big words from a man holding a shotgun. You planning to shoot me over paperwork. Planning to shoot you if you don't turn around." The 2 men behind Cal shifted in their saddles. The nervous one's hand drifted toward his gun. The broken-faced one spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "Easy now," Cal said, not looking back at them. "No need for unpleasantness. I just came to collect what's mine." "She's not yours," I said. "Marriage license says different. Sheriff says different. Law says different. Law also says you can't leave a woman tied up in a barn to die. Is that what she told you?" Cal laughed. Sadie's always had an imagination. Gets confused sometimes. Isn't that right, honey? Sadie's finger tightened on the trigger. The only thing I'm confused about is why I ever thought you were worth marrying. Cal's smile slipped, just for a second. But I saw it. The mask cracking, the anger underneath. That's enough, he said. His voice had changed, gone cold. Get on your horse, Sadie. We're going home. No. That wasn't a request. And this isn't a negotiation. Cal's jaw tightened. He finally dismounted. Slow, deliberate, like he was giving us time to reconsider. I didn't want it to be like this, he said. Came here peaceful, offering you a chance to do the right thing. He looked at me. But if you want to make this difficult, that's your choice. She stays, I said. You prepared to die for her, if that's what it takes. What about you, Sadie? Cal called. You going to let this old man die because you're too stubborn to come home? Sadie's voice was steady. Home burned down the day you put your hands on me the first time. Cal's face went red. You ungrateful? He didn't finish. The nervous rider behind him made his move, hand going for his gun, fast but not fast enough. I fired first. The shotgun kicked hard against my shoulder. The sound cracked across the land like dry wood splitting. The nervous rider jerked backward. His gun went flying. He toppled off his horse and hit the ground hard, clutching his shoulder. Blood spread across his shirt, dark and wet. He wasn't dead, wasn't even badly hurt. But he was out of the fight. Everything happened at once after that. Cal dove off his horse, rolling toward the water trough. His gun came out firing wild shots that hit nothing but fence posts and dirt. Wood splinters exploded. Dust jumped up around my boots. The broken-faced rider spurred his horse forward, bringing his rifle up. Sadie fired. The shot caught him in the leg. He yelped, grabbing at the wound, and his horse reared. He fell hard, trying to crawl for cover behind the well. I pumped the shotgun, took aim at Cal, but he was already behind the trough, using it for cover. Get inside, I told Sadie. No. A bullet punched through the porch rail. Wood exploded next to my head. I felt the sting of splinters across my cheek. Cal was firing steady now. Controlled. He knew what he was doing. I dropped behind the water barrel we kept on the porch. Sadie crouched beside me, working the rifle bolt. Her hands were shaking now, but she kept them moving. Circle wide, I told her. Get to the corner of the house. You can see the well from there. What about you? I'll keep Cal busy. She hesitated, then nodded and moved, staying low. I fired at the trough. The shot punched through the wood. Water started leaking out. Cal swore and shifted position. Another shot from the broken-faced man. The bullet hit the barrel I was behind, punched through water, spraying. I rolled left, came up, fired again. The man behind the well ducked, but not fast enough. The spray of buckshot caught the edge of the well, sending stone chips flying. One caught him across the face. He jerked back, covering his eyes. Sadie fired from her new position. The shot went high, but it made the man duck down again, giving me time to reload. I broke open the shotgun, fumbled for shells, got them in, snapped it closed. Cal was moving. I saw him shift, getting ready to run for better cover. I fired. The shot went wide, but close enough that Cal threw himself flat. That's when Sadie shot him. Not a kill shot. She hit him in the arm just above the elbow. Cal screamed, dropped his gun, grabbed at the wound. The broken-faced man saw his boss go down and made a decision. He mounted his horse, clutching his bleeding leg, and spurred it hard, rode off fast, leaving Cal and the nervous rider behind. Smart man, knew when a fight was lost. Cal was on his knees now, holding his arm. Blood ran between his fingers. He looked up at me with hate in his eyes. Pure, undiluted hate. You're dead, he said. You hear me? You're dead. Not today, I said. Sadie came around the corner of the house, rifle still raised, still pointed at Cal. She walked toward him slow, each step deliberate. Cal saw her coming. Sadie, baby, listen. Don't. I can explain. There's nothing to explain. She stopped a few feet from him. You left me in that barn to die. You told yourself it was justified, that I deserved it, that it was my fault for not being the wife you wanted. You ran, Cal said. Like that explained everything. Like that made it okay. I ran because you broke my ribs, because you broke my jaw, because every time I tried to be what you wanted it wasn't enough. Cal's face twisted. I gave you everything, a home, a name, respect. You gave me bruises and fear and nights wondering if I'd wake up. He tried to stand. Sadie raised the rifle higher. Don't, she said. Cal froze, looked at her, really looked, maybe for the first time. You won't shoot me, he said. You don't have it in you. You think this changes anything, Cal snarled. You think shooting me makes you brave. Sadie's voice was quiet, certain. It already has. For a long moment they just stood there, Sadie and the man who'd tried to break her, the man who'd left her to die. And he saw it, saw that she wasn't the same woman he'd tied up, wasn't the same woman who'd run 3 times and come back 3 times because she didn't know where else to go. She'd changed, and it terrified him. I walked over, kept my shotgun on Cal. On your feet. Cal stood still, holding his bleeding arm. You got no right. You lost the right to talk when you left her in my barn. The nervous rider was sitting up now, clutching his shoulder, moaning. He looked young, maybe 20, probably hired for $5 and told it'd be easy work. Can you ride? I asked him. He nodded, pale as milk. Then get on your horse and go. Tell people what happened here. Tell them Cal Turner came for his wife and found out she's not his anymore. The kid didn't need to be told twice. He stumbled to his horse, got up one-handed and rode off. That left Cal. The sign and the shame. We didn't kill him. I thought about it. God knows I thought about it. Would have been easy, quick. 1 shot and the world would have 1 less man who thought women were property. But Sadie stopped me. No, she said. He tried to kill you. I know. But if we kill him, we're no better. And he gets to be the victim. Gets to be the man who was murdered on his own land by squatters and a crazy wife. She was right. Death would make him a martyr, would give people an excuse to say he wasn't so bad, that we'd overreacted. Then what? I asked. She looked at Cal, at the blood running down his arm, at the fear in his eyes that he was trying to hide behind anger. We make him remember, she said. I found some rope in the barn. Good rope, ironically. Probably the same rope Cal had used to tie Sadie up. We bound his hands behind his back. He fought at first, but the wound in his arm made him weak, made him slow. You can't do this, he said. I got rights. So did Sadie, I replied. You didn't seem to care much about those. We sat him down in the dirt while I went to work. Found some planks of wood in the barn, clean ones. I got a knife and started carving. Sadie watched. What are you making? A sign. What's it going to say? I kept carving. The truth. It took me an hour. The letters weren't pretty, but they were clear, big enough to read from 10 feet away. When I was done, I held it up. The sign read, I left a woman to die in a barn. Cal's face went white. You can't what tell people what you did? It wasn't like that. Then how was it? He had no answer, just stared at the sign like it was a death sentence. Maybe it was. We found an old mule in the barn, half-wild thing that the previous owner must have left behind. It took us 20 minutes to get a rope on it. We put Cal on the mule backward, hands tied, sign hanging around his neck on a piece of wire. What are you doing? He asked. His voice had gone high, scared. Taking you to town, I said. Like this. Like this. People they'll know what you did. That's the point. Sadie stood in front of the mule, looked up at Cal. You told everyone I was crazy, she said. That I wasn't right in the head. That you were taking care of me. Well, now they'll know the truth. Every person in Ashford is going to see you ride through wearing that sign, and they're going to know what kind of man you really are. Cal's face crumpled. Please, Sadie, please, don't do this. You didn't show me mercy. Why should I show you any? I'm your husband. No, you were my husband. Now you're just a man on a mule. We left at first light the next morning, gave Cal's arm time to stop bleeding, couldn't have him dying on the way to town. The ride to Ashford took about an hour. Cal didn't talk much, kept his head down, kept trying to hide the sign against his chest. I made him straighten up every time. People need to see it, I said. I'll kill you for this, he muttered. You tried that yesterday. Didn't work out well. We came into town from the east. The main street was already busy. Morning commerce. People going about their business. The first person to see us was a woman sweeping the steps of the general store. Martha Keene. She looked up, saw Cal on the mule, saw the sign. Her broom fell from her hands. Merciful God, she whispered. Others started to notice. A man loading a wagon, 2 women talking outside the church, a boy running errands. One by one they stopped what they were doing and stared. We rode down the main street slow, deliberate, making sure everyone could see. Cal kept his head down, tried to hide. But I'd tied the rope in a way that made it hard for him to slouch too much. The sign was visible from both sides of the street. I left a woman to die in a barn. A woman gasped, put her hand over her mouth. A man swore, took his hat off like someone had died. More people came out of buildings. The saloon, the feed store, the hotel. They lined the street watching us pass. No one said anything. That was the worst part, not the shouting or the cursing or the anger. The silence. The silent judgment of a town that had looked the other way for years and was now being forced to see what they'd ignored. I saw Sheriff Wade standing outside his office. He saw us coming, saw Cal, saw the sign. His face went hard. He stepped into the street, hand on his gun. That's far enough, he said. I stopped the mule. We're just passing through, Sheriff. You can't do this. It's inhumane. Inhumane. I looked at Cal, at the sign, at Wade. You know what's inhumane? Leaving a woman tied up in a barn to die while you look the other way. Wade's jaw tightened. That's an accusation. It's the truth. You got proof. I got Sadie. I got rope burns on her wrists. I got the barn where I found her. What proof do you need? Wade looked at the crowd gathering, at the faces watching, at the people who were starting to mutter among themselves. He knew. If he arrested me, if he tried to help Cal, the town would turn on him, would see him for what he was. Complicit. Get him out of town, Wade said quietly, before this gets worse. He's all yours, Sheriff. Do with him what you want. But everyone here knows what he did now. Can't unring that bell. I untied the rope holding Cal on the mule. He slid off, stumbled, almost fell. Wade caught him, looked at the sign, looked at me. This ain't over, he said. It is for him. We turned the mule around and rode out of town the way we came. Behind us I heard the murmur of voices getting louder, heard someone shout Cal's name, not friendly, not sympathetic, angry. Sadie didn't look back, just kept her eyes forward, chin up, shoulders straight. You okay? I asked. No, she said, but I will be. We got back to the ranch around noon. Both of us exhausted. Both of us still running on anger and adrenaline and the strange feeling you get when you've done something you can't take back. Sadie went inside to wash up. I took care of the horse and the mule. When I came in, she was sitting at the table staring at her hands. I thought I'd feel different, she said. Different how? Better, lighter, like something had been lifted. She looked at me. But I just feel tired. Revenge doesn't heal wounds, just changes how they hurt. Is that from experience? I thought about Roar, about Billy, about all the years I'd spent running from what I'd done. Yeah, I said. It is. She nodded, stood up, poured 2 cups of coffee. We drank in silence. Outside the sun was high and bright. The land was quiet, peaceful almost. But I knew better. This wasn't over. Cal might be broken, but he wasn't the only threat. Somewhere out there, Roar was waiting, planning, deciding when and how to make me pay for Tombstone. And unlike Cal, Roar wasn't going to let me just ride away. The note in red. 3 days passed. 3 days of quiet, of routine, of pretending that everything was normal. Sadie got stronger, walked further each day, helped with chores, started talking about what she wanted to do next. "I could go east," she said one evening, "find work in a city somewhere, start over where nobody knows me." "You could stay here," I said. She looked at me. "You'd want that. This land's too big for one person. Could use another pair of hands. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a place. If you want it." She thought about it, nodded. "I'll think about it." I knew she would, and I knew deep down that she'd probably stay, at least for a while. She had nowhere else to go and no reason to trust the world beyond this ranch. But on the 4th day, everything changed. I found the note nailed to the gate. Old paper edges burned brown, writing in red ink or maybe paint. Hard to tell. The words were simple. "I'm coming back for what's mine." Not Cal's handwriting. I knew that immediately. The letters were too neat, too controlled. Cal wrote like a man who'd barely been to school. This was different. Sadie looked at the note over my shoulder. "That's not Cal." "No." "Then who?" I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the red letters, at the deliberate spacing, at the way the words seemed to burn into the paper. "Hank?" I folded the note and put it in my pocket. "We need to talk." We sat at the table. I poured coffee even though it was afternoon and too hot for coffee. Needed something to do with my hands. "The man who came here a few nights ago," I said. "Roar, he's not done with me." I gathered that. Sadie wrapped her hands around her cup. "You said you let his son die, in Tombstone." "Yeah." "Tell me what happened." So I did. Not all of it, not yet, but enough. Told her about the job that went wrong, about Billy running into the street, about the woman in the fire, about how I froze and did nothing while both of them died. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "How old was Billy?" she asked. 8. "And you were 25. Old enough to know better. Old enough to be scared. Old enough to make a mistake." She looked at me. "You think Roar's coming for revenge?" "I know he is. Because of the note. Because I know him. He doesn't forgive. Doesn't forget. He's been carrying this for 15 years and now he's found me. He's going to make it count." Sadie set her cup down. "So what do we do?" You think I'm leaving after everything? This isn't your fight. Neither was Cal, but you made it yours. Fair's fair." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell her to leave, to go east like she'd said, to find a life that didn't involve standing between a man and his ghosts. But I didn't, because the truth was, I didn't want to face this alone. "He'll use you," I said, "like he said in the note. He'll try to hurt you to hurt me. Let him try." "Sadie, I've been hurt before, Hank, by men bigger and meaner than Roar, and I'm still here. So let him come. Let him try, and we'll see who's left standing when it's done." She meant it. I could see it in her eyes. The same determination that had made her pick up the rifle after missing 10 times. The same strength that had let her face Cal on that mule. "All right," I said. "Then we prepare." That night I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the note, about the red letters that looked like blood, about Roar sitting somewhere out there in the dark planning, waiting, about what he'd do when he finally came for me. I got up around midnight, went outside. The stars were bright, the land was quiet, too quiet. I walked out to the gate where I'd found the note, stood there looking at the nail hole in the wood. That's when I saw it. Another note. Smaller this time, tucked into a gap in the fence post where I wouldn't see it unless I was looking. I pulled it out, unfolded it. 4 words in that same red ink. I remember Tombstone. R. My blood went cold. Not because of the threat, because of what it meant. Roar wasn't just coming for revenge. He was making me remember, making me relive it, making me carry the weight of Billy's death every day until he decided I'd suffered enough. And then he'd come. I stood there in the dark holding that note, and I realized something. I'd been running for 15 years, running from Tombstone, from Billy, from Roar, from the man I'd been when I stood still and let people die. But I couldn't run anymore, because Roar had found me, and he wasn't going to let me disappear again. This time I'd have to stand. The next morning Sadie found me at the desk. I'd been sitting there for hours staring at blank pages in the journal, trying to write, trying to put words to things that didn't have words. "You look terrible," she said. "Feel worse." She poured coffee, sat down across from me. "Another note," I showed her. She read it, set it down. "He's playing with you." "I know. Making you wait. Making you think about it." "That's what he does. Always has. Roar doesn't rush. He plans. He waits. And when he moves, it's because he knows exactly how it's going to end. How do you beat someone like that? You don't. You just try to survive them." Sadie was quiet for a moment. Then, "Tell me about Tombstone. All of it. Not the version you gave me before. The real one." I looked at her. At the concern in her eyes. At the trust she was showing me even after everything. "It's not a good story," I said. "The best ones never are." So I told her. Everything. From the beginning. Tombstone burns again. Present day, the ranch. Hank writing in his journal. I'm writing this now because Sadie asked me to. Because she said if Roar's coming, she needs to know what happened. Needs to understand what kind of man she's standing beside. I don't know if I can do it justice. Don't know if words can capture what that day was like. But I'll try. Because if I die before this is over, and there's a good chance someone should know the truth. Not the version I told myself for 15 years. The real one. The day Billy Roar died. 15 years earlier. Tombstone, Arizona. June 12, 1863. The morning started normal enough. Hot. The kind of hot that makes you think hell might be a real place and you're already there. But we were used to it. Had been in Tombstone for 3 days by then planning the job. Roar was in a good mood. Billy had slept well, hadn't woken up with nightmares like he sometimes did. And the job looked easy. Bank had minimal security, small town law, in and out in 10 minutes. "One more job," Roar kept saying. "Then we're done. I'll buy a place, settle down, raise Billy proper." I believed him, or wanted to. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Billy was playing outside the hotel with his wooden horse, the one Roar had carved for him. Kid loved that thing, slept with it, talked to it, made up stories about where it came from and where it was going. "Uncle Hank," he called, "watch this." He made the horse gallop across the dirt, made whooshing sounds. Got so into it he tripped over his own feet and went down hard. I started to get up, but Billy was already laughing, brushing himself off, horse clutched in his hand. "You're going to break your neck doing that," I said. "Nah, I'm tough." He was. Kid had been through more than most adults, and he still smiled like the world was a good place. Wish I'd told him that. Told him he was brave. Told him I was proud to be his Uncle Hank. But I didn't. Just watched him play and thought about the job. We hit the bank at noon. 5 of us. Roar, me, and 3 others. Names don't matter now. 2 of them are dead. The 3rd disappeared years ago. Should have known something was wrong the minute we walked in. The bank was too quiet. The clerk looked nervous. The customers all seemed to be near the doors. But we were committed. Had already drawn guns, already announced ourselves. That's when the shooting started. Someone had talked. Someone always talks. The law was ready. Sheriff and 6 deputies hiding in the building across the street. First shot came through the window. Took out one of our men before he could even turn around. Second shot hit the wall behind Roar's head. Then it was chaos. We fired back. Glass shattered. People screamed, someone knocked over a lamp and oil spilled across the floor. Fire. Always fire. The oil caught fast, flames spread across the floor, up the wall, into the curtains. Within seconds the whole front of the bank was burning. "Out the back!" Roar shouted. We ran, made it through the back door into an alley. But the law was there too, waiting. More shots. One of our men went down. Roar got hit in the shoulder but kept moving. I saw him disappear around a corner, tried to follow, but the smoke was thick and the fire was spreading to the buildings next door. That's when I heard her, a woman, screaming for help. I turned, saw her in the window of the building next to the bank. Second floor. The fire had spread there, smoke pouring out, flames climbing the walls. She was trapped. I ran toward the building, got to the door, tried to open it, locked. The woman screamed again. "Help me, please!" I grabbed a piece of wood, tried to break the door down, but it was thick, solid, and the fire was getting worse. "Hang on," I shouted. "I'm coming." But I wasn't, because I couldn't get the door open, and the smoke was filling my lungs, and the heat was like standing next to a forge. And then I heard it. A voice. Small. Scared. "Uncle Hank." I turned. Billy was in the street, 20 feet away. He'd followed us. Must have seen the smoke, come running to find his father who was nowhere to be seen. "Billy," I shouted, "get back." But he didn't. He ran toward me, toward the fire, toward the chaos. That's when the shot rang out. I don't know who fired it. Don't know if it was the law or one of our men or just a stray bullet from the firefight happening all around us. Don't matter. Billy stumbled. His legs gave out. He fell face first in the dirt. The wooden horse rolled out of his hand and stopped a few feet away. I stood there. Door in front of me. Woman screaming behind it. Billy lying in the street 20 feet to my left. 20 feet. That's all it was. I could have reached him. Could have run to him. Could have picked him up and carried him to safety. But I didn't move. Because the woman was screaming. Because the fire was spreading. Because I was 12 years old again, standing outside a burning barn, listening to my father die and not being able to do anything about it. I froze. Just like I'd frozen when I was 12. Just like I'd frozen a dozen times since. Just like I'd probably freeze again. I stood there with the door in front of me and Billy dying in the street, and I did nothing. 10 seconds. That's all it was. 10 seconds of standing there paralyzed while my brain tried to decide what to do. But 10 seconds was enough. By the time I moved, by the time I finally broke free of whatever was holding me still, it was too late. I ran to Billy, knelt down beside him, turned him over. There was blood. So much blood. Spreading across his small chest, soaking into his shirt. His eyes were open, looking at me. "Uncle Hank," he whispered, "it hurts." "I know, buddy. I know. You're going to be okay." But he wasn't. We both knew it. Behind me, the woman in the building stopped screaming. The fire had taken her. In front of me, Billy Roar took his last breath. His eyes stayed open, still looking at me, like he was waiting for me to do something, to fix it, to make it okay. But I couldn't. I'd stood still, and now they were both dead. Roar found me a few minutes later. I was still kneeling in the street, still holding Billy, still covered in his blood. Roar took one look and understood everything. He didn't say anything at first, just knelt down beside me and took his son from my arms, held him like Billy was sleeping, like he might wake up if Roar held him tight enough. Then he looked at me. His eyes, God, his eyes, I'll never forget them, the way they went from grief to understanding to something cold and final. "You were right there," he said. His voice was flat, dead. "I froze," I said. I couldn't. You were 20 feet away." The woman was screaming. The fire. Billy was calling for you. I had no answer to that, because it was true. Billy had called my name, had run to me for help, and I'd stood there like a statue while he died. Roar looked down at his son, at the blood, at the wooden horse lying in the dirt a few feet away. He reached out, picked it up, held it in his hand. "We were brothers," he said. "You and me. I would have died for you." "Roar. And you let my boy die. I'm sorry." "Sorry, don't bring him back." He stood up, still holding Billy, still holding the wooden horse. He looked at me one more time, and I saw it. The moment our friendship died. The moment I became something else to him. Not a brother, not a friend, an enemy. "You're dead to me, Hank," he said. "You understand dead?" Then he walked away, carrying his son, leaving me kneeling in the blood-soaked dirt. Present day. The ranch. I set the pen down. My hand was shaking, had been shaking for the last hour while I wrote. Sadie was sitting across from me. She'd been quiet the whole time, just listening while I read what I'd written. "That's why he's coming," I said. "Not for revenge, for justice, because I let his son die and then I ran. Didn't even stay for the funeral, just left him there to bury Billy alone." Sadie reached across the table, took my hand. "You were 25 years old, surrounded by gunfire, trying to save one person while another was dying. That's not cowardice, that's being human." "I could have saved him." "Maybe. Or maybe you'd both be dead. Or maybe the woman would have died anyway. Or maybe the whole building would have collapsed and killed everyone. You don't know. You'll never know. Roar knows. He knows I stood still. He knows you were in an impossible situation and made a choice. Not a good choice. Not even the right choice. But a choice. And you've been punishing yourself for it ever since." I pulled my hand back. "He deserves justice. Maybe. But not at the cost of your life. And not at my expense." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "Roar said he's coming for what matters to you. That's me, Hank. I'm the leverage. He's going to use me to hurt you the way you hurt him." She was right. That's exactly what Roar would do. "Then you need to leave," I said. "Tonight, before he comes." "No." "Sadie." I said no. Her voice was firm. "I'm not running anymore. Not from Cal, not from Roar, not from anyone. This is different." "How?" "Because Roar's not like Cal. Cal was cruel. Roar's strategic. He'll wait until he knows exactly how to hurt me the most, and then he'll do it without hesitation. So we'll be ready. You don't understand. Roar taught me everything I know. He's faster, smarter, more patient. If it comes to a fight, I'll lose." "Then we make sure it doesn't come to a fight." "How?" She thought for a moment. "You said he wants you to remember, wants you to suffer, wants justice for Billy." "Yeah." "Then maybe that's the answer. Maybe you give him what he wants." "You mean confess?" "I mean face him, not with a gun, with the truth. Tell him what you told me. Tell him you were scared. Tell him you've been carrying Billy's death for 15 years. Tell him you're sorry." "That won't be enough." "Maybe not, but it's a start." We spent the rest of the day preparing, not for a fight, for a confrontation. I wrote more in the journal, tried to put into words everything I'd been carrying, everything I'd never told Roar because I'd been too afraid. Sadie helped, asked questions, made me think about things I'd buried. By evening I had something, not a speech, just the truth written down clear and simple. As the sun set, I sat on the porch and read it over. Sadie sat beside me. "You think he'll listen?" I asked. "I think he'll hear you. Listening's up to him. And if he doesn't, then we deal with that when it comes." The sun dropped behind the ridge. The land went orange, then purple, then blue. And in the growing dark I thought I saw movement on the ridge trail. A figure on horseback, watching, waiting. Roar was out there, somewhere, planning his next move, and tomorrow or the next day or the day after he'd come. And when he did, I'd have to face 15 years of guilt and grief and everything I'd been running from. The only question was whether I'd survive it. The fire at the ridge. The next morning came quiet. No birdsong, no wind, just silence pressing down like the sky was holding its breath. I woke before dawn. Hadn't really slept. Just laid there in the dark listening to Sadie breathe in the next room and thinking about what was coming. I got up, made coffee, watched the sun paint the horizon pink and gold. Sadie found me on the porch. She'd slept in her clothes, rifle within reach. We were both living like soldiers now, always ready, never at ease. "He's coming today," she said, not a question. "Yeah." "How do you know?" "Because I would. 3 days of letting me think about it. 3 days of fear and waiting. That's enough. Any more and I might run again." She sat down beside me, took the coffee cup from my hands and drank from it, grimaced at the taste but drank anyway. "What's the plan?" she asked. "I go to him. Alone. Has to be. This is between me and him." "He might kill you." "Might. That's not a plan, Hank. That's suicide." I looked at her, at the worry in her eyes, at the strength that had grown there over the past weeks. "I've been running for 15 years, I said. From Tombstone, from Billy, from the man I was when I stood still. And all that running did was make me tired, made me someone I didn't want to be. So you're just going to walk up to him and let him shoot you?" "No. I'm going to walk up to him and tell him the truth, all of it, everything I should have said 15 years ago. And if that's not enough, then at least I'll die having tried." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up, went inside, came back with the journal I'd been writing in. "Take this," she said. "Why?" "Because if something happens to you, someone should know your story. The real one, not the version Roar tells, not the version the town makes up, yours." I took the journal, felt the weight of it, all those pages, all those words I'd never said out loud until now. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For listening, for staying, for being someone worth coming back to." She touched my face, gentle, the kind of touch that says more than words. "Come back," she said. "We're not done yet." I saddled the horse around 8. The sun was up full now, hot already, going to be another scorcher. I checked the pistol, made sure it was loaded, but I wasn't planning on using it. This wasn't that kind of fight. Sadie stood by the gate, watching me prepare, rifle in her hands, face set like stone. "Where will he be?" she asked. "Ridge Trail. Same place he was before. He'll want the high ground, the advantage. And you're just going to ride up there. That's the plan." "It's a terrible plan." "Probably." I mounted the horse, looked down at her, at this woman who'd been left to die and refused to stay dead, who'd faced her demons and won. "If I'm not back by sundown, you will be. But if I'm not, take the horse and go. Don't wait. Don't come looking. Just go. Hank, promise me." She held my gaze, then nodded. "I promise." I knew she was lying, knew she'd wait until midnight, until dawn, until she was sure. But I appreciated the lie anyway. I rode out without looking back. The ridge trail wound up through rocks and scrub, steep in places, the kind of terrain that favors the man who knows it. Roar would know it. He'd spent 3 days up here, watching, planning, choosing his ground. I took it slow. No point rushing to your own funeral. About halfway up I saw the smoke, thin line rising into the blue sky. Campfire, small one. Just enough to make coffee and keep the night chill off. I kept riding. The trail opened up near the top, flat space about 20 yards across. Good view of the land below, good view of anyone coming up. Roar was waiting. He sat on a rock near a small fire, coffee pot beside him. His horse tied to a scrub tree a few yards away, gun belt on but the gun still holstered. He looked older in the daylight, gray in his beard, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 15 years ago, but the same sharp gaze, the same way of sitting like he was carved from the same stone he sat on. I stopped the horse about 15 feet away, dismounted, left my gun holstered. "Morning," I said. Roar nodded. "Wondered if you'd come. Didn't figure I had much choice." "There's always a choice, Hank. That's what you taught me." The words cut, because they were mine, Something I'd said to Roar years ago when we were deciding whether to take a job, whether to cross a line. He'd crossed it. So had I. And we'd both paid the price. "You going to invite me to sit?" I asked. "Depends. You planning to shoot me?" "No." "Then sit." I walked over, sat on the ground a few feet from him, close enough to talk, far enough to move if I needed to. Roar poured coffee into a tin cup, handed it to me. I took it. The coffee was hot and bitter and tasted like dirt, same as mine. "You still can't make coffee worth a damn," I said. "Neither can you." We sat there for a minute, two old men drinking bad coffee on a ridge in the middle of nowhere. Could have been any morning from 15 years ago, except for the gun on Roar's hip and the weight of Billy's death between us. "You read my notes?" Roar asked. "Yeah. And I remember Tombstone every day, every night, every time I close my eyes." Roar studied me. "You look like hell." "Feel worse." "Good." He poured himself more coffee, stared into the cup like he could see the past in there. "I've thought about killing you," he said. His voice was conversational, like we were talking about the weather. "Thought about it for 15 years. Different ways, different places, quick or slow, from a distance or up close." "Which one did you settle on?" "Hadn't decided yet. That's why I'm still here." He looked at me, really looked, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Uncertainty. "Why'd you come up here, Hank?" he asked. "You had to know it might be a trap." "Because I'm tired of running, and because you deserve answers." "Answers won't bring Billy back." "No, but maybe they'll let you put him down." Roar's jaw tightened. "You don't get to tell me how to grieve my son." "You're right, I don't." Silence. The fire crackled, my horse shifted weight. Somewhere below a hawk cried. "The woman," Roar said. "The one you're protecting. You care about her." "Yeah." "Why?" "Because someone tied her up and left her to die in my barn, and I wasn't about to let that happen again." "Again?" "The woman in Tombstone, the one who burned. I heard her screaming and I stood outside and did nothing." Roar's eyes narrowed. "I didn't know about her." "I know. I never told you. Never told anyone." "Why not?" "Because admitting it meant admitting I froze. Meant admitting I was the kind of man who stands still when people need him." I took a breath. This was it. The moment I'd been running from. "That's what happened with Billy," I said. "I froze. Just like I did when my father burned. Just like I did with the woman in the building. I heard her screaming and I heard Billy call my name and I couldn't move. My brain just stopped. And by the time it started again, they were both dead." Roar was very still. "You could have reached him." "I know. 20 feet. That's all it was." "I know." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth. Not the version I told myself. Not the version where I tried but couldn't get there in time. The truth. I froze. I was scared. And your son died because of it." The words hung in the air between us, heavy, final. Roar stood up, walked to the edge of the ridge, looked out over the land stretching below. "I wanted you to be a coward," he said. "Wanted you to be this kind of man who ran because he didn't care, because that would make it easier." "Easier how?" "To hate you, to blame you, to make you the villain in the story I've been telling myself for 15 years. He turned around, looked at me. "But you weren't running because you didn't care. You were running because you cared too much, because you couldn't live with what you'd done. Does it matter?" "I don't know, maybe." He walked back to the fire, sat down. "After Billy died," he said, "I wanted to die too. Couldn't see a point to living anymore. But I didn't. Know why? No. Because I had you to hate, had someone to blame, had a purpose." He laughed. Bitter. "You kept me alive, Hank. Your failure gave me a reason to keep breathing. I'm sorry. I know. I should have stayed. Should have faced you. Should have helped bury him. Yeah, you should have. He picked up a stick, poked at the fire. I brought something, he said. Been carrying it for 15 years. He reached into his saddlebag, pulled out something small, wooden. The horse. Billy's wooden horse. He held it out to me. I took it, turned it over in my hands. The paint was faded, the legs were uneven, but it was the same horse I'd watched Billy play with that last morning. I was going to give this to you, Roar said. Right before I killed you, wanted you to hold it, see it, remember what you'd taken from me. And now I'm not sure killing you would make me feel any better. He looked at me, and I saw it, the exhaustion, the weight of 15 years of hate and grief and anger. You've been punishing yourself, he said. Haven't you? Every day. Good. Because that's worse than anything I could do to you. He stood up, walked to his horse, started untying the reins. That's it, I asked. You're just leaving. What else is there I can't bring Billy back? Can't change what happened. Can only decide what I do next. And what's that? He mounted his horse, looked down at me. I'm going to stop carrying this, he said. He nodded at the wooden horse in my hand. You keep that. Remember him. Remember what it costs to stand still. I will. And Hank, next time someone needs you, that woman, or someone else, you move. You hear me? You move. I will. He pulled the reins. The horse turned. We're not friends, he said. Never will be again, but we're not enemies either. Then he rode down the trail and disappeared into the scrub. I sat there for a long time, holding the wooden horse, watching the fire burn down to embers. The weight I'd been carrying for 15 years was still there, still heavy. But somehow it felt different now, like maybe, just maybe, I could learn to carry it without it crushing me. The choice at dawn. I rode back to the ranch as the sun started to drop. The land was turning gold and orange, beautiful in that way deserts are beautiful, harsh and unforgiving but honest about it. Sadie was waiting on the porch, rifle across her knees. She stood up when she saw me coming. I dismounted. She ran over, checked me for wounds. You're alive, she said, surprised. A little. So was I. We went inside. I told her everything, what Roar said, what I said, how he'd left. She listened, asked questions, poured coffee that was somehow worse than mine. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. So that's it? She asked. He just rode away. Yeah. No gunfight, no last words, no revenge. No. That's anticlimactic. I laughed. Couldn't help it. After 15 years of running and 3 days of fear, it was anticlimactic. Life's like that sometimes, I said. All that build-up, and then it just ends. You disappointed? No, relieved, surprised, but not disappointed. She looked at the wooden horse sitting on the table between us. He gave you that? Yeah, said I should keep it. Remember Billy. Will you? Don't think I could forget if I tried. She reached across the table, took my hand. You did good today. I didn't do anything, just told the truth. That's more than most people do their whole lives. Maybe she was right. Maybe just being honest, really honest, the kind that cuts, was enough. But I wasn't done yet, because there was one more truth I needed to tell. Sadie, I said, there's something else. What? When I was up there with Roar, when I was telling him about Tombstone, I realized something. What's that? I haven't told you everything. Her hand tightened on mine. About Tombstone. About why I froze. About why I stood still. You said you were scared of fire because of your father. That's true, but it's not the whole truth. I stood up, walked to the window, couldn't look at her for this part. When Billy fell, I said I had a choice, run to him or try to save the woman in the building. And for about 3 seconds I tried to decide which one, tried to figure out which life mattered more. Hank. And in those 3 seconds I thought about the woman, thought about how the fire was spreading, thought about how if I didn't get her out right then she'd die for sure, thought maybe I could save her and then get to Billy. My voice cracked, had to stop, breathe, start again. But the truth, the real truth I've never told anyone is that I also thought about walking away, just leaving, both of them, saving myself. Silence behind me, heavy, waiting. I stood there for 10 seconds, I continued, and in those 10 seconds I thought about running, about getting on my horse and riding away and never looking back, thought about how easy it would be, how no one would ever know. But you didn't. No, but I thought about it, wanted to, and by the time I decided I couldn't, by the time whatever decency I had left won out, it was too late. They were both dead. I turned around, looked at her. So that's the whole truth. I didn't just freeze. I considered running, considered saving myself and letting them die, and I hate myself for it more than I hate myself for standing still. Sadie stood up, walked over to me, put her hands on my face and made me look at her. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For telling me, for trusting me with that. You're not disgusted." "By what?" "By the fact that you're human, by the fact that in a moment of terror your brain offered you an escape and you considered it for 3 seconds before rejecting it. I shouldn't have. You were 25 years old surrounded by gunfire watching people die. Your brain was trying to keep you alive. That's what brains do. It offered you the option to run, and you said no. But I thought about it. Everyone thinks about running, Hank. Every soldier, every person in every crisis. The ones who freeze think about it. The ones who run think about it. The ones who stand and fight think about it. Thinking isn't the same as doing." She pulled me close, held me. "You chose to stay," she said. "That's what matters. You chose to try to help even though it terrified you, and you've been carrying the guilt of that choice for 15 years, even though it was the right one." I held on to her, let myself believe just for a moment that maybe she was right. "What happens now?" I asked. She pulled back, looked at me. "Now we live," she said. "We stop running. We stop hiding. We build something here, something good. You're staying. If you'll have me." "As what?" She smiled. "How about partner equal shares? Your land, my labor. We make this place work together." "I don't deserve—" "Stop. You've spent 15 years telling yourself what you don't deserve. Maybe it's time to accept what you do." I kissed her then, gentle. The kind of kiss that says thank you, and I'm sorry, and please stay all at once. She kissed me back, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt like maybe, just maybe I could be the kind of man who deserved a second chance. The next morning I woke to the smell of coffee that wasn't terrible. I walked into the kitchen. Sadie was at the stove actually using the coffee pot correctly for once. "Where'd you learn to do that?" I asked. "My mother, before she died, said a good cup of coffee could fix most problems." "Can it?" "No, but it helps." We drank the coffee on the porch, watched the sun come up. The land stretched out before us, empty and quiet and full of possibility. "What should we do first?" Sadie asked. "First? With the ranch. If we're going to make this work, we need a plan." I thought about it. "Fix the barn." "The barn? Can't use it for storage if the roof's half caved, and every time I look at it I think about finding you there. Time to make it something else, something better." She nodded. "What else?" "Plant a garden, real one, vegetables, maybe some flowers if we can get seeds." "Why flowers?" "Because Maggie always wanted a garden with flowers, and because this place could use some color." "Anything else?" "Fix the fence, mend the roof, get some chickens, maybe a cow if we can afford one." "That's a lot of work." "Yeah, but we got time." She looked at me, smiled. "Yeah, we do." We spent the next week working, dawn to dusk, fixing things that had been broken, building things that had never been. The barn got a new roof. Took us 3 days, but it was solid when we finished. Sadie insisted we paint the doors, said it needed to look different, look like a place where good things could happen instead of bad. We painted them blue, like the sky. The garden took longer, had to clear the rocks, turn the soil, build a fence to keep the rabbits out. But by the end of the week we had neat rows ready for planting. Sadie rode into town to buy seeds. I offered to go with her, but she said no. Said she needed to face the town alone, see how people looked at her now that Cal was gone. She came back 2 hours later with seeds and stories. Martha Keene asked if I was all right, she said. First time she's asked me anything in 3 years. Said she was sorry she didn't help before. What'd you tell her? That sorry was a start, but it didn't change what happened. How'd she take that? She cried, then she gave me extra seeds, free. More people came by over the next few days. Not many, but enough. A rancher from 10 miles north brought over 3 chickens, said he'd heard we were setting up and everyone needs chickens. A woman from town whose name I didn't catch dropped off preserves and bread. Didn't say much, just set them on the porch and left. Even Sheriff Wade stopped by, sat on his horse at the gate, didn't come closer. Heard Cal left town, he said. Went east, Colorado maybe. Good, I said. Heard Roar was out here too, and then left. Also good, Wade nodded, looked at the ranch, at the new roof on the barn, at Sadie in the garden. I should have helped her, he said. Years ago, I knew what Cal was, everyone knew, and we all looked away. Yeah, you should have. That's all you got to say. What else is there? You can't undo it, can only decide what you do next. Wade sat there for another minute. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a piece of paper. This is the deed, he said. Real one. Shows the land belonged to Sadie's father, then to her. Cal's was forged. I know. You should file this, make it legal, make sure no one can take it from you. He held it out. I walked over, took it. Why now? I asked. Because I'm tired of being the kind of man who looks away. He tipped his hat, rode off. I stood there holding the deed. Sadie came over, read it over my shoulder. It's mine, she said, quiet, like she couldn't quite believe it. Yours and mine. Partnership, remember. Right. Partnership. She took the deed, folded it careful, put it in her pocket. My father would have liked you, she said. Yeah. He always said the measure of a man is what he does when no one's watching, when it doesn't benefit him, when it's just the right thing to do. I'm not sure I measure up. You do. 3 weeks after Roar left, I was fixing the fence on the south pasture when I saw someone riding up. My hand went to the gun on my hip, but I recognized the horse before I saw the rider, Roar. He stopped about 20 feet away, dismounted, walked over. We stood there looking at each other, 2 old men who'd been friends once, who'd been enemies, who were now something in between. Thought you were gone, I said. I was. Made it to New Mexico, started to set up. But something didn't sit right. What? He reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a small package wrapped in brown paper and string, held it out to me. I took it, unwrapped it. Inside was a second wooden horse, bigger than Billy's, better carved. The legs were even, the paint was fresh. Made it last week, Roar said. Figured if you're going to keep Billy's, you should have one that's made right. Reminder that even bad carpenters can get better with practice. I turned it over in my hands. It was beautiful. Simple, but beautiful. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me. Just... He looked away, looked back. Just keep trying. Keep moving when people need you. Don't let Billy's death be for nothing. I won't. He nodded. Started to leave. Stopped. The woman, Sadie. She good to you? Yeah. Then hold on to that. Life doesn't give you many second chances. I know. He mounted his horse. I'm opening a horse ranch in New Mexico. If you ever need work or want to visit, you'll know where to find me. You inviting me? I'm saying the door's not locked. What you do with that is up to you. Then he rode off. This time I knew he wasn't coming back. I stood there holding the two wooden horses, the old one and the new one, the reminder of what I'd failed to do and the promise to do better. Sadie came walking up, saw the horses, raised an eyebrow. "Roar?" she asked. "Yeah." What did he want? To make sure I understood. Understood what? That forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing what you carry and how you carry it. She looked at the horses. "And which one are you carrying?" "Both. One to remember Billy, one to remember I can still get better." She slipped her hand into mine. "Come on, dinner's almost ready." We walked back to the house together. The sun was setting. The land was turning gold. And for the first time in 15 years I felt at peace. The garden and the ink, present day. The ranch, 1893. I set down the pen. My hand aches. Been writing for 2 days straight, trying to get it all down while the memory's fresh. The lamp flickers. Snow's still falling outside. Sadie's still asleep in the next room. 15 years since that day on the ridge. 15 years since Roar rode away and gave me back something I thought I'd lost. Not forgiveness. He never said the word, never absolved me, just gave me permission to stop hating myself quite so much. I look at the wooden horses on the shelf. Both of them. Billy's worn and faded, Roar's clean and straight. Some days I look at Billy's and remember the boy I failed to save. Remember the sound of his voice calling my name. Remember the weight of his body in my arms. Other days I look at Roar's and remember that even carpenters who can't carve straight can learn, can get better, can make something worth keeping. Both truths live in me. Both always will. The door opens. Sadie comes in. She's older now, 44. Hair going gray at the temples. Lines around her eyes from squinting in the sun. But she's stronger than she was. Healthier. Happier. We've built a good life here. The ranch runs well. Runs. The garden produces. We've got chickens and 2 cows and a horse that's getting old but still works. More than that, we've built something that matters. A place where people can come when they need help. We've taken in 3 women over the years. Women like Sadie used to be, running from men like Cal. We give them a place to stay, teach them to shoot, teach them to stand up. Then we help them leave if they want to or stay if they don't. Martha Keene sends them to us. Says everyone deserves a second chance. She's right about that. Sadie sits down beside me, looks at the pages spread across the desk, at the words I've been writing for 2 days. "You finished?" she asks. "Yeah, I think so." "Can I read it?" I hesitate. It's one thing to write the truth, another to let someone read it. But this is Sadie. If anyone's earned the right to know my story, it's her. "Yeah," I say. "You can read it." She picks up the first page, starts reading. I watch her face, watch her eyes move across the words. When she gets to the part about finding her in the barn, she touches her wrists without thinking. The scars are still there, faded but visible. When she gets to the part about Tombstone about Billy, she slows down, reads more careful. When she finishes, she sets the pages down, looks at me. "Thank you," she says. "For what?" "For writing it, for being honest, for trusting me with this." She reaches over, takes my hand. "You know what I think," she says. "What?" "I think you've been carrying this alone for too long. And I think now that it's written down, maybe you can let some of it go." I don't know if I can. You don't have to let it all go, just enough that you can breathe a little easier. She stands up, holds out her hand. "Come on," she says. "I want to show you something." We walk outside. The snow has stopped. The land is covered in white, clean and quiet and new. Sadie leads me to the garden. Even in winter you can see where things grew, where we planted and tended and harvested. "Remember when we first planted this?" she asks. "Yeah. You said we needed something living, something that proved we were staying. And now look at it. 15 years of planting and growing and harvesting. 15 years of building something that matters." She turns to me, takes both my hands. "You spent 15 years carrying Billy's death, 15 years punishing yourself for freezing, but you also spent 15 years helping people, building this place, becoming the kind of man who runs toward people who need help instead of standing still. I'm still the man who let Billy die. Yes. And you're also the man who saved me, who taught me to shoot, who gave me a place when I had nowhere else to go. Both things are true, Hank. You don't get to pick which one counts." I look at the garden, at the snow covering it, at the promise of spring underneath. "You think Billy would forgive me?" I ask. "I think Billy was 8 years old when he died. I think he loved his Uncle Hank. And I think if he could see you now, see the man you've become, he'd be proud." "You can't know that." "No, but I believe it. And maybe that's enough." We go back inside, make coffee, sit at the table and watch the sun come up through the window. The journal sits between us, all those pages, all those words. "What are you going to do with it?" Sadie asks. "I don't know. Keep it, I guess. Maybe give it to someone someday. Someone who needs to know that you can fail and still be worth something." That's a good lesson. It's the only one I got. We drink our coffee, watch the light change, listen to the house settle around us. After a while, Sadie speaks. "You know what I realized," she says. "What? This place, this ranch, it saved us both. You found me here, gave me a reason to fight back. And in saving me, you saved yourself." "How do you figure?" "Because you'd been standing still for 15 years, running but not moving, going through the motions but not really living. And then you found me and suddenly you had a reason to move again, to fight, to be the man you wanted to be instead of the man you'd been." She's right. I know she's right. Finding Sadie didn't erase Tombstone, didn't bring Billy back, didn't change what I'd done, but it gave me a chance to do better, to be better, to prove that one moment of failure doesn't define a whole life. "Thank you," I say. "For what?" "For being here, for staying, for building this with me." She smiles, squeezes my hand. Where else would I go? Later that day we ride into town, need supplies. Also want to check on a woman Martha mentioned, someone who might need a place to stay. Ashford's changed over the years, got bigger, got a railroad now, more people, more noise. But some things stay the same. Martha's still running the store. Sheriff Wade's still sheriff, though he's talking about retiring. Cal Turner never came back. Heard he died in Colorado 5 years ago. Pneumonia. Died alone in a boarding house. I didn't feel anything when I heard. No satisfaction, no regret, just nothing. Some debts get paid, some don't. Life moves on either way. We stop at the store. Martha's behind the counter. She smiles when she sees us. "Hank, Sadie, good to see you." "You too, Martha. You mentioned someone might need help." Martha's face gets serious. "Young woman, maybe 20, showed up 2 days ago. Won't say where she's from. Got bruises on her arms, jumpy, scared." "Where is she now?" "Back room. I told her she could stay here a few days, but I think she needs more than a few days." Sadie and I exchange a look. "Can we talk to her?" Sadie asks. "I'll ask, but be gentle. She's real fragile." Martha disappears into the back, comes back a minute later with a young woman, dark hair, thin, eyes that look everywhere and nowhere. I recognize that look. It's the same one Sadie had when I found her. "This is Emma," Martha says. "Emma, this is Hank and Sadie. They run a ranch about 8 miles out. Good people." Emma nods, doesn't speak. Sadie steps forward, slow, non-threatening. "Emma, we know what it's like, both of us. And if you need a place to go, a place to heal, we have room." Emma looks at Sadie, at the scars on her wrists that are still visible. "You got away?" Emma asks. Her voice is small, broken. "Yeah, I did. And so can you. He'll find me. Maybe, but we'll be ready. And this time, you won't be alone." Emma thinks about it. You can see her weighing options, deciding if trust is worth the risk. Finally, she nods. "Okay." We bring Emma back to the ranch, give her the same room Sadie had, the same clean bed, the same space to breathe. Over the next few weeks, we teach her the same things I taught Sadie: how to shoot, how to stand up straight, how to look fear in the eye and not blink. Some days she cries, some days she rages, some days she just sits quiet and stares at nothing. We let her, because healing isn't linear, isn't neat, isn't something you can rush. After a month, she shoots her first can off the fence, doesn't smile, just nods and reloads. After 2 months, she plants her first row in the garden. After 3 months, she laughs at something Sadie says. Small victories. But they add up. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the porch, writing in the journal, adding to the story, Emma's story, and the stories of the 2 women who came after her. The sun's setting, the land's turning gold. Sadie's in the garden with Emma showing her how to harvest the last of the tomatoes before the frost comes. I hear them laughing, talking about nothing and everything. The sound carries across the yard like music. I think about Billy, about Tombstone, about all the years I spent running from what I'd done. I think about Roar wherever he is now. Hope he found some peace. I think about Cal and Sheriff Wade and all the people who could have helped but didn't. Hope they learned something. But mostly I think about this porch, this land, these women who came here broken and left whole. This is what redemption looks like. Not a moment, not a grand gesture, not killing the villain or saving the day, just a series of small choices. Get up, make coffee, teach someone to shoot, plant a garden, help when you can, move when you should, over and over, every day, until the small choices add up to a life worth living. I pick up the pen, write one more line. The land didn't forgive us, but it let us stay. And that, I suppose, was enough. Then I close the journal, put it on the shelf next to the wooden horses, beside Maggie's picture and the old land deed and all the other pieces of a life lived imperfectly but honestly. Sadie calls my name. Dinner's ready. I stand up, walk toward the house, toward the light and warmth and the sound of voices, toward home.